Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to another 3 hours of exploring random locations in Fallout 3. Now, for those of you who are new to this is just a compilation of my series, The Unexplored Capital Wasteland. This is the third installment. There is a playlist if you want to see the other two videos. Mainly this video is meant for people who just want to use it as kind of background sound, something they can do while building settlements in Fallout 4, or just playing another video game, or anything related to Fallout, of course. People might use it for sleeping, for working out, whatever it might be. Now, this was requested by a lot of you, a lot of my fans, so here is the third installment. Thank you guys so much for watching, and without further ado, here is 3 hours of random locations in Fallout 3. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out Roosevelt Academy, which is a pretty large location. However, there are not really any quests associated with it, besides the fact that we can find sheet music within Roosevelt Academy, which we can give to Agatha. Now, Roosevelt Academy might be very well known with Fallout New Vegas players, because on Eddie, the iRobot that can be your companion, there is a piece of junk or just a sticker attached to Eddie that reads, "My child is an honor student at Roosevelt Academy." Obviously a reference to this academy in Fallout 3. And it's also worth mentioning that Roosevelt Academy is based on the real-world Theodore Roosevelt High School, which is in Washington, D.C., so a pretty cool reference to a real-world location in Fallout 3. And of course, Theodore Roosevelt was the 26th president of the United States. He is a very popular president, one of my favorites as well, and his face is featured on Mount Rushmore. And with that, Roosevelt Academy is located just north of the MDPL mass relay station, kind of in the western part of the map. Now, as you approach, you will immediately notice there's a lot of super mutants here, and there are a plethora of super mutants that have made this former high school or just academy or some kind of school their home. So we will have to kill all of those super mutants, obviously. Now, the first building we'll check out is the Academy building itself. Now, as you enter, a Wastelander will be thrown from above in the ceiling, and we can loot him, but he doesn't have anything good on him. Be careful, as there is a super mutant above us that will lob grenades down towards you. Now, if you head to the eastern part of the building, we will find this bathroom, which contains a copy of Pugilism Illustrated, which will increase our unarmed skill. Pretty good. Now, if we head towards the back here, we will find the headmaster's office. Unfortunately, there was no Albus Dumbledore. We only found a super mutant brute, but hey, we shot him in the head. And then there's a pre-war book on the desk, and there's also a computer we can hack, and this will activate the Protectron that we saw earlier in the video. And this Protectron, which is named Dean Dewey, will ask the player character to present a hall pass. Now, if the player character does not have this pass, which you cannot, the Protectron will attack you unless you have Robotics Expert perk or Child at Heart perk. And also, if you have below 3 intelligence, he will not attack you and instead escort you to the special education room. So pretty funny. Now we're on the western part of the school, and in here we can find the nurse's office, and there's a DC Journal of Internal Medicine, which is pretty good, along with some first aid boxes. Now, one more thing about Dean Dewey, the Protectron, is that he was possibly named after Thomas E. Dewey, the Republican candidate who ran against Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1944, or it could be a reference to the Dewey Decimal System, a library classification system, which has been used in the U.S. public library and school libraries for over 100 years. Not really clear where his name came from, but those are two possible places. Now, unfortunately for me, Dean Dewey met his end at the hands of the super mutants, and they continue to chuck grenades down on me, which is really sad. Now, also throughout the school, you will see some American propaganda, obviously about the war against China at that time. Now, also outside of the school, there's some interesting propaganda from Vault Tech, talking about the vaults and, nuclear war, which is quite scary. Now, as we make our way to the top, we can find the super mutant who was throwing grenades on us. He is unarmed otherwise, and he will just try and fight you with his fist. And there's also a super mutant with a hunting rifle up here on the top. There's a small chair, I guess, maybe used by the super mutants to just watch the entrance for unsuspecting wastelanders to enter. In this back room, we have some ammunition crates along with an average locked cabinet that really only didn't have anything in it, a 10mm Chinese pistol and some ammunition. Now, also worth mentioning, this academy is pretty big and there are a ton of super mutants in here, but as far as loot and stuff, there really isn't that much else of interest. Now, if you head on down to the basement, we can find the entrance to the maintenance and evacuation tunnel, which we will talk about later, but we're going to enter from the Arts and Athletics Hall. Now, I did find this bathroom with a dead settler that apparently may have been tortured by super mutants as they were eaten alive by rad roaches. Pretty freaking scary. After that, we'll head on over to the Arts and Athletics Hall, where we will find a lot of super mutants and a pretty epic fight in this kind of small theater area. Now, do be aware, there are several high-leveled super mutants. I do believe they are leveled, but I had to fight about 3 or 4 super mutant masters in this area, which was pretty tough for me, but thanks to dog meat and my Chinese assault rifle, we were able to take care of it. Now, this little play area is pretty cool because we have a really rare replica of a city in Fallout 3 with miniature versions of Fallout 3's buildings. Also in the corner over here, not this corner, the corner on the stage, we can find the sheet music book next to these music stands, and this sheet music book can be given to Agatha, and in return she'll give you the Black Hawk and good karma. So pretty good, and somewhere we still need to visit in the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Now, as you explore the rest of the building, you will find some hallways and just classrooms. In this back room, I was actually pretty scared by this mannequin in real life. It made me jump a bit. Don't know why, it's not that scary. I was just not expecting a mannequin and a dead radio next to each other. Here's more super mutants. This place is littered with them. Down there, that takes us to the maintenance tunnels. We'll return there later. And then you can make your way to the top floor, and you definitely want to do that because there's some good loot. Now, on the top floor, we can find the locker room. There's really nothing in here. However, in this kind of side office or side room, we can find an Enclave radio and then a first aid box that is locked, had some good stim packs in it. Now, on this desk where there's 2 ammunition boxes, we can find a copy of Tumblers Today, which will increase our lockpick skill behind the ammunition boxes. Pretty good find. There's also a safe with random loot that had a lot of caps, some energy cells, and pre-war money for me. Now, I found another rad roach that apparently had killed a settler. Maybe it was just killed by super mutants. Who knows, but I really enjoyed this building. It was kind of unique, kind of special, and this little concert hall is really cool in my opinion, and I just love the miniature version of Fallout 3's houses. And after that, since the library is locked, we will make our way down into the maintenance and evacuation tunnels. These are just a series of tunnels that connect all 3 buildings of Roosevelt Academy together. Now, as you can see here, you have to be really careful while you're down here because there are several gas leaks, and using laser weapons or just any kind of firing weapon will obviously trigger the gas. Now, over in this corner, we have a lot of ammunition along with some radaway, and these ammunition boxes are really cute. They're like miniature versions of ammunition boxes. Then down the staircase next to where we found those ammunition boxes, we can find this large kind of central room. And in this room, we can find another copy of Pugilism Illustrated. So pretty good if you want to increase your unarmed attack. Now, there is a super mutant brute in here that tried to charge me, but he failed. And after that, there is an easy locked door, and this will lead us kind of to this larger tunnel. Now, you can go south or north, and if we go north, it'll take us back towards the Roosevelt Academy, which was the first building that we explored. Now, we'll go ahead and head that way now, though, and along the way, there will be some centaurs and a lot of super mutants, including a super mutant master that I had to fight that took a little bit of time, so I sped it up. Now, as I made my way, I did find a very easy locked door, and inside was a wastelander that was being held hostage, a captive. Now, you can untie her and free her like I did. And I was very surprised to find this because I did not see this mentioned on the wiki at all. And I was a bit surprised about that. Maybe it's just not that extraordinary. But I thought it was pretty cool and pretty interesting, and something I definitely wasn't expecting after I conducted my research about this location. So make sure to stop on in and to free this captive, or you could enslave her, I guess, if you're going for an evil playthrough. But there's my karma gain. Now, as we make our way towards the Roosevelt Academy, we'll find a pretty disturbing scene. There are several skeleton remains of what appears to be child or teenage bodies. So perhaps during the early stages of the Great War, the students of Roosevelt Academy tried to make their way into these tunnels, but obviously the radiation or explosion killed them. Now, as we make our way to the southern part of the maintenance tunnels, we can find a first aid box with some minor loot. There's also a switch, and if we turn on the switch, it'll open up this grater above us, and this will allow us entrance to Roosevelt Library. Now, in Roosevelt Library, it is pretty small, which is kind of nice, I guess, after exploring so much of these buildings. However, there is a super mutant overlord that was waiting for me with a minigun. So a pretty intimidating battle. Now, in that bathroom, there was a stealth boy, as you can see. And here is the super mutant overlord. I decided just to fire a mini nuke off into the room, and it didn't even kill him. It took freaking dog meat to bite him in the chest in order to kill him. But hey, whatever works, works, right? After that, you can obviously loot him, and he has the library key on his dead body. And then also on this desk is a bottle of Nuka-Cola Quantum and a stealth boy, but of course they got shifted and flown around for me just because I used a mini nuke. However, they were not too far from where they were. As you can see, the Nuka-Cola Quantum just got pushed underneath the desk. There's also a locked safe, which had some pretty decent loot, and there's also a first aid box, which contained one single stim pack for me. And here's the stealth boy just below the desk. Then I decided to take the minigun from the super mutant. After that, I made my way to the second floor of the library, but there's literally nothing up here, just a bunch of empty bookshelves and some desks. And then that pretty much concludes all three buildings of Roosevelt Academy, at least all of the loot and the interiors of each building. Outside, we have this small courtyard with super mutants wandering around. And then also to the west, we have this random kind of rail car. Don't know why it's here. But I did want to talk about these various trains on the eastern part of the academy. There appears to have been some kind of train crash up here on the eastern part of the university. There's various train cars, and I really don't know why they're here. However, in the background, obviously in the back there towards the south, we can see the railroad for Washington. I almost said New Vegas, for Washington, D.C., so perhaps when the bombs fell, one of the trains came flying off the tracks towards the school. Who knows? Then as we continue further east of the academy, we can find a very interesting character that was killed by this rad scorpion, big rip, but we can find a wanderer, not the lone wanderer, which is our character, just a wanderer. Very interesting. He also has the Wanderer's leather armor, which is unique armor within Fallout 3. And we can also find his little encampment over here along this kind of dry river bed. Now, in this camp, we can find a locked ammunition box, and of course we can open it. And then above us, we can find a mini nuke, which is really good and just kind of a random piece of loot to find way out here. So definitely want to take that. And there's also a pre-war book on top of this table, along with another ammunition crate. Now, I also wanted to mention is there are a lot of rad scorpions out here in the middle of this area. So no wonder this wanderer got killed. And I also wanted to mention that you can find dog bowls at the Wanderer's encampment. And dog bowls are kind of a rare item in Fallout 3. So if you want to like collect all the items or something, this is one place where you can always find them. And then I decided to bring a wanderer back to his or her encampment. Anyways, don't know why they are out here, but very interesting. And also worth mentioning that their appearance changes in every playthrough of Fallout 3. So sometimes they are a man, sometimes they are a woman. It is always randomly generated. Alright guys, and I think that pretty much covers Roosevelt Academy and a lot of the surrounding area. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and that you learned a thing or two about Fallout 3 or perhaps Fallout New Vegas. If you guys have any recommendations for a future video or future location, please post them in the comments section below. And, as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out Faded Pomp Estates. This is a really small location. It's just north of where we visited last time, the Roosevelt Academy. It kind of acts as a neighborhood for that school. Now, of course, the Roosevelt Academy in real life is actually a high school, so we can assume that it's just like in high school or maybe all grades in the Fallout universe. And then here on the world map, you can see the location of the estates. Obviously, this used to be a pre-war neighborhood, but yeah, it didn't survive very well, and it just features several destroyed houses. Now in the area, there will be some rad scorpions, as you can see here. Also, at the nearby Roosevelt Academy, super mutants might make their way over if they hear the fighting. But for me and Dogmeat, the rad scorpions didn't pose much of an issue. Now within the houses, you'll just kind of find random stuff, like here's a stove or a table. Really not that much of interest. You can also look in the mailboxes to see if there's anything, but didn't find much. There is this metal shack that has a trunk in it, but it was empty. And we'll talk more about this metal shack later. And then over in this house, there's actually a jukebox, and if you turn it on, it'll be tuned to the Enclave radio. However, my radio is currently off, obviously, to avoid copyright, so we can't hear it. But hey, if you want to hear President Eden, there you go. Then there's another rad scorpion that decided to come over and attack us. Easy to kill. Now in this house, kind of at the end, there will be a lawnmower, and there's also a safe. You can open it up, and I got some bottle caps and healing items and stuff. Pretty typical, but, not bad loot either. And then up the hill, we can find, like, a little bed, and there's, like, a shelf. Maybe somebody has been living here recently. Also, I noticed there's a fire hydrant. Just thought that's kind of cool. Kind of some details to life in pre-war America. Then if we come on down, here's that metal shack I mentioned earlier. Obviously, this was built after the war, so somebody came in here and lived. And in the house next to the metal shack, we can actually find a fireplace, a copy of Pugilism Illustrated, and we can find some cooked iguana in the fireplace. So somebody, obviously, has been living in that house, but who knows who it is. And there you have it, Fated Pomp Estates. Now there is one thing worth mentioning is if you have the Broken Steel add-on, that you can actually face Enclave or even Deathclaws in this location. So if you have it, do be a bit more careful than I was just coming in, guns a-blazing. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. While this location is kind of small or insignificant, it is a large location, but rather insignificant. It adds a lot of environmental storytelling to the world of Fallout. Just seeing all of these destroyed homes and such makes it more like a real world. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and if you have any ideas for a future video, please post them in the comments below. And, as always, until next time. Howdy everyone, the Army of Otters here. Welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out the Silver Lining Drive-In. This is just a small drive-in movie theater just north of the Fated Pomp Estates, where we visited last time. Now there really isn't a whole lot going on at this location. It just kind of adds a bit of character to the world of Fallout 3. Now something I do want to point out though is in Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, and Fallout 4, you will notice that there are cars parked at all of the drive-in movie theaters. However, in the Fallout universe, the atomic bombs fell in the morning. Doesn't make a lot of sense for people to be watching movies. However, I did see in the news just a couple of years ago, the first ever daytime drive-in movie theater was open, so hey, I guess anything is possible, including morning drive-in movies. And as you can see here on the world map, the Silver Lining Drive-In is located just north of Fated Pomp Estates and is to the west of Paradise Falls, a location we will be visiting in the near future, but that's definitely a video for another day. And as you approach from Fated Pomp Estates, if you're like me, you will immediately find this metal shack, which contains our lone item of interest, a comic book of Grognak the Barbarian, which will increase our melee skill by 1. Then we can come over here to the actual drive-in, and we can see some speakers and a lot of parked cars. And if you've completed the Waters of Life quest, an Enclave vertibird will come flying in, dropping off a bunch of soldiers. So of course, the logical solution to this is to use a mini-nuke on the leg of the Enclave soldier. And yeah, that pretty much took care of them really easily. Now, after killing them, I was attacked by a giant rad scorpion, so all kinds of just chaos going on here. Definitely expect a few fights if you ever visit here, and be prepared for Enclave and some giant rad scorpions, but hey, no problem for me and Dogmeat. Dogmeat has been nothing short of an incredible companion for me throughout this playthrough. And then another vertibird came flying in, dropping off more Enclave soldiers. Wanting to save some mini nukes, I decided to use my missile launcher on them since I've been gathering a lot of missiles. And yeah, that took care of them fairly easily. Finding out how to deal with these Enclave soldiers, then I looted their bodies for whatever they had. They had some ammunition and other goodies. But that's pretty much it for the Silver Lining Drive-In. This is a pretty small location that just adds a bit of character to Fallout 3. Of course, I love the drive-in theaters in the Fallout universe, kind of really bringing that 1950s, 1960s feel. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed. If you have any ideas for a future video or future location, please post them in the comments section below. And as always, until next time.
Is the most important part.
What do you mean, lost it? We are under siege! Mobius! You will never survive my deadly robo-scorpions, technological terrors, and, my bigger, more atomic versions of these things.
Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out Drowned Devil's Crossing. This is just a small collapsed bridge that is right between the Silver Lining Drive-In and Mason-Dixon Salvage. It's also right next to the WKML broadcast station. Now, really, there's not a whole lot here. It's just a road and then a crashed truck. However, if we enter the truck, something pretty cool will happen. So let's check it out. And here's the location on the world map, just southeast of Raven Rock, up here in the northwest part of the map. Now, as you approach, do be careful because there are some guard dogs and a lone raider nearby. The raider actually started chucking frag grenades at me, but it did more damage to his dogs than it did to me. And then me and Dog Meat killed the raider, who at this point was just equipped with a knife, so pretty easy to kill. After that, we can actually loot around, obviously, the raider and the dead bodies, and more specifically, we want to go in the truck. However, do be ready for a fight. There are some stim packs and chems on the floor, as you can see, right away. But do be careful in this truck, because upon entering and upon going to the back of the truck, some raiders will spawn to the west and attack you. Here we can see I found tumblers today, a really good skill magazine next to the safe. Then we can pick open the safe and we can find some pretty good loot, including a stealth boy. After this, I was just kind of waiting for the raiders. I saw them on my radar, and they fired a rocket at the freaking truck, causing all kinds of chaos. Went outside and found Dog Meat was already fighting them. The truck blew up and just kind of mass chaos with this ambush by the raiders. And then a Yao Guai decided to join. The raider guard dog was there. Just kind of chaos, but a really fun and awesome little sequence that can be triggered by you, the player, when you enter that truck. And while this little event is scripted, I really like it. I think it adds a lot to the game because it feels like, hey, I went to this place, I killed their dogs, the raiders heard the chaos, they came on over and tried to kill me. This feels like a very realistic and real situation in the post-apocalypse. Underneath the bridge, we can find various dead bodies that have been tortured, but really not a whole lot at the bridge. But I was attacked by a nearby sentry bot. We got into a long fight, but using the missile launcher, I was eventually able to kill him. Also, Dog Meat did a lot of help as well. Almost died here, though, as you can see in the bottom left of the screen, but we did manage to survive. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Drowned Devil's Crossing is a pretty nifty little location. I love the scripted encounter that happens here. It really kind of creates this sense of, well, that I'm in the post-apocalypse. And this is an event that might really happen in the post-apocalypse. If you guys have any recommendations for a future location, future idea, please post them in the comment section below. And as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here. Welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out the WKML broadcast station. This is a location that is in the far northwestern part of the map. Now, if you watched my previous Unexplored Capital Wasteland videos, like the recent 5 or so episodes, this location can be seen in the background of many of those episodes. It's a very prominent location, visually speaking, in the far northwestern part of the map. However, there really isn't a whole lot here, which is kind of unfortunate. Either way, though, Visually speaking, it is quite impressive, and it leaves an impression on the player, so let's go ahead and check it out. And here's the location on the world map, just east of Deathclaw Sanctuary and west of Drowned Devil's Crossing, which was the previous episode. Now, as you approach the front of the WKML broadcast station, you will notice that there is a poster from the Enclave featuring their propaganda, rebuilding America's future today. Now, obviously, the Enclave is kind of a genocidal maniac organization, but hey, they have beautiful propaganda. But I did want to mention, it's quite impressive that they can make this propaganda given the state of the Capital Wasteland. It seems like it would take a lot of valuable resources to make all of this propaganda and to plaster it across the wasteland. And for what? Who would ever see this propaganda? I just thought it's kind of funny, kind of worthless from a logistical point of view, but either way, it does add a lot to the game, so hey, I'll let it slide. Anyways, as I approached, there was a dead raider surrounded by 4 vicious dogs. I killed all of the dogs, but there's nothing on their bodies. Then I looted the raider to see if he had anything of interest, and, well, he had 7 bottle caps, so there you go. Now, this is a random encounter, specifically a random encounters will spawn in front of the station. Now, the station itself features 3 of these radio towers, and then a main building. However, there really isn't a whole lot inside of the building. We have various desks and this old equipment that was probably used to broadcast a radio signal, obviously speaking. Whatever WKML was probably very prominent in the pre-war era. Now, there is an activation switch on the western wall of this room, and if we turn it on, we get this radio signal that just broadcasts some Morse code. It's the same exact code for several radio stations across the Capital Wasteland, so it's really not anything special. Now, the main thing of interest here is the sealed cistern, which contains an explosive bobblehead. However, it can be a bit difficult to find, but the location does appear on your local map if you need help finding it. But here I will show you. If you go to the front entrance of the broadcast station, then we just head right in between south and southwest, south by southwest to be specific. It is right underneath this cliff, and you can find the sealed cistern. Now, it is important to note that you don't want to take large followers in here, such as Fox, because they can become permanently stuck, and you have to reload a past save, and you can get trapped inside of here, which is no good. But there is some valuable loot. We have a stim pack, and a stealth boy, and then, of course, the explosives bobblehead. A really good find indeed. But besides that, there really isn't much of interest within the WKML broadcast station. However, I want to mention within this sealed cistern, we have a pretty haunting scene here. We have what appears to be a pre-war woman who appears to have blown her brains out. There's no gun to indicate this. Perhaps the gun was taken. Don't know why they would leave around other valuable loot, but hey, whatever. That, probably survived the Great War, or at least initially survived, but decided on suicide when they couldn't reach any help. Obviously, they came to this sealed cistern. They were trying to broadcast using the radio towers above, but had no luck. It's a pretty haunting scene and adds a lot to the environmental storytelling. Alright, everyone, and there you have it. The WKML broadcast station. While there really isn't a whole lot here, it's a very cool and prominent visual across the northwestern part of the Capital Wasteland. And I really enjoyed checking it out. And while there was a lot of hype for me coming up to this location, not really knowing what to expect, I was kind of let down. But still, I really enjoyed it. It's a pretty cool place. And we got the explosives bobblehead. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. If you have any recommendations for a future location, future video, please post them in the comment section below. And as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out Dixon Salvage. This is a location in the far northern part of the map, and it's pretty close to the previous location, which was the WKML broadcast station. Now, this area appears to be some kind of old salvage or scrapyard, and it is now overrun with super mutants. Now, there is a lot of good loot here, so let's waste no more time and jump on into it. And here's the location on the world map, just north of Drowned Devil's Crossing, and east of Deathclaw Sanctuary, and south of that huge satellite array, which we are slowly making our way towards. Now, as you approach, you will notice that there are super mutants. Depending on your level, the enemies here will change, so it is leveled. I only had 2 super mutant masters, which is a bit difficult, but there can also be centaurs and lower leveled super mutants. Using the victory rifle, I was able to knock over this master several times, making it pretty easy to kill him. Now, the next master had a minigun, which made it a bit more difficult of a fight, because I just couldn't shoot him freely, unlike the other super mutant master. So with this guy, I used a missile, and that missile was a direct hit, and that almost killed him. And then I just used a laser rifle to finish him off. Good night. Pretty easy. After that, all of the enemies were dead, and I was free to explore the 2 shacks here. Now, there is the southern shack, and inside of here, we have some ammunition crates, and then underneath the bed, or next to the bed, there is an average locked footlocker, and next to that is a copy of Tumblers Today, which will increase your lockpick skills, so that's pretty darn good. And then there's also a refrigerator with a random assortment of foods. Then back outside, we can go rescue the captive here. There is 1 captive. Of course, you can choose not to rescue her, but that might be a bit cruel. But anyways, we decide to untie her, and then we let her go. I tell her to keep all of her items. I don't need a reward, and that will boost your karma. So, pretty good. And then over at the Western Shack, we can find 2 skill books, a copy of Nikola Tesla and You, and a copy of the DC Journal of Internal Medicine. And that is pretty good. So inside there is a first aid kit. Definitely make sure you see what's inside of it. There's also some skeletons in the refrigerator and another skeleton, skulls in the refrigerator. And this skeleton did like a kickflip. Freaking amazing. And then over here we have the DC Journal of Internal Medicine. It kind of blends in with the floor, so do be careful not to miss it. And then next to the Western Shack, there is an Enclave radio, so make sure you turn that bad boy off so you don't go freaking insane. That's what will happen. And over towards the eastern part of the scrapyard, we can find a truck with some ammunition boxes in it, and also some makeshift beds, so you can sleep here if you want. This location can be used as player housing, specifically the 2 shacks. However, maybe it's not so good because every time you travel here, you'll have to fight off some super mutants. Or at least every 2 to 3 days, they will respawn. After that, we just have a bunch of cars over here that are probably, or were probably, going to be destroyed, well, before the Great War happened. But we can get a pretty good view of the scrapyard from over here. And I also wanted to point out that the entrance just looks really creepy. You have these old steel beams with skulls pointing out of them. So pretty scary if I do say so myself, but hey, it is super mutants. Then if we head to the northeast, just northeast of Mason-Dixon Salvage, we will find an abandoned tent. But as you make your way there, do be careful because we have various wildlife out here in the Capital Wasteland. We have rad scorpions, we have a Yao Guai. Everyone wants to kill us, but me and Dogmeat can easily make our way to the abandoned tent. And this tent is pretty common across Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, but we can go inside. And well, you can also use this as player housing if you want. The only downside is, of course, you can't really fast travel here. But inside, we can find another copy of Nikola Tesla and You, so that is really good. Lots of skill magazines in this area. There was Nikola Tesla and You, and then we have some ammunition boxes, and also in the corner next to the ham radio is a Nuka-Cola Quantum. Pretty good, and I actually really just love this tent. It's just out here in the middle of nowhere. It feels somewhat isolated, but it also feels really cool. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. This was a really fun place to explore. It definitely feels like an old kind of like car salvage area, but obviously it's fallen into a big state of disrepair. Alright guys, if you have any recommendations for a future location or future video, please post them in the comment section below, and as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here. Welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out Satcom Array NN-03D. And frickin' hell, of course when I'm trying to record the frick-frackin' scenic shot, I get attacked by a giant rad scorpion. Thankfully, I have dog meat with me. Now, while Satcom Array NN-03D might be a mouthful, this location is frickin' awesome. There's a lot of really cool hidden secrets in this facility, there's some good loot, and it's just a really cool place to explore and to get some really cool items. Now, this is easily missed by the player characters located in the far northwestern part of the map. As you can see here, it is just north of Dixon Salvage, where we visited last time, and it is east of Raven Rock, in the far northern part of the map. So let's waste no more time, let's jump into this frickin' awesome location. Now, if you approach from the south like I did, do be prepared to fight several rad scorpions as we saw in the beginning, and there was another rad scorpion as I made my way up towards the 3 satellite arrays. Now, this place is occupied by raiders, and as you enter Satcom Array A, there's going to be a lot of raiders inside this building that you're going to have to fight. Now, if you're here by yourself, it might prove to be a bit of a challenge. However, thankfully, I had Dogmeat with me to do most of the heavy lifting. I just kind of ran in, followed Dogmeat, and Dogmeat did the rest, murdering all of these raiders. Now, within this Satellite Array A, we can see some pretty horrific scenes of probably Wastelanders being tortured by the raiders. Now, there's the first aid box with some loot. There's also some chems laying about. We can find a crucified body on the wall. Just absolutely brutal. As we make our way to the top, we can find a sniper rifle, some mentats, and an ammunition box. Now, back outside, do be careful, because raiders from the other satellite arrays will be shooting at you, which creates a pretty cool and dynamic fight, with altitude or height being an important factor. As we make our way to the top of Satellite Array A, we will find that this is a pretty good spot to take out any raiders on the surrounding arrays. Now, there's no one in the satellite dishes themselves, unlike us right now, but there are plenty of raiders in the middle platforms. So, using this position, we can easily take them out. Now, as I was trying to get into Satellite Array B, little did I know there is actually no entrance to Satellite Array B unless you come from one of the other satellite arrays. Now, if you come around, we'll actually find a door, and this door, if you open it, just says, "Fuck you." Well, fuck you too, Bethesda. Actually, this door is pretty funny. According to Joel Burgess, this location was created by either Daryl Bringer or Justin McSweeney, and during a last-minute expansion of the map, there was an error with this location. This door led to nowhere, and as a fix, Burgess came up with a solution of adding "fuck you" graffiti on a solid wall. This solved the issue, and they were able, obviously, to release the game on time. So in order to get to Satellite Array B, we have to go back through A, go all the way to the very, very, very top again, and there's actually a bridge on the satellite dish that was made by the raiders, which allows us to easily access Satellite Array B. Now, at the bottom of the satellite array itself, there's tons of empty whiskey bottles, and above us there is a cage, obviously used for torture of whoever the raiders want. Now, in this next room, there's a bunch of junk, but none of it is of particular use for us at this time, and then we can make our way further into Satellite Array B. As we enter, there will be a lot of raiders inside of here, so make sure you kill them. Now, you do want to be careful with the raiders here, because if there's any kind of violent explosion or something like that, it could damage the chessboard, which you can see to the left at this moment in time. Now it's at the center of the screen. This chessboard features small-sized gnomes, whiskey bottles, and energy packs to form the chessboard. These are very unique items in the game because they're just smaller versions of gnomes and whiskey bottles and whatnot. So make sure to pick up a few to display around your house in Fallout 3 like I did. Now on the first floor we can find a chemistry set, which we will be talking a lot about later in this video. But for now we can find some chems laying about the chemistry set. Obviously they're using it for the production of drugs. And the reason my character is moving slowly is because those small little garden gnomes actually weigh quite a bit. However, I almost leveled up, so I figured I would increase my carry weight later on. Now, from Satellite Array B, there's an underground passage to Satellite Array C, and we'll find more raiders within C, so make sure you take them out. Now, in this underground passage on the staircase, we can find something of particular interest, or just something that is kind of funny. There is a toy car at the top of the staircase, and then a line of beer bottles going down the staircase, kind of representing a line of dominoes. You know, you can knock down the toy car, and the beer cans will follow. Unfortunately, this SMG got in the way of the domino effect, but if it's left intact, you can create a pretty cool domino effect. Obviously, the raiders within this facility are really freaking bored. Now, there are tons of beer within this facility. Don't know why all the beer is here, but hey, grab yourself a cold one and open up with the boys. Now, over by the entrance to Satellite Array C, we can find these coffins, which are likely dug up from the graveyard just outside of Satellite Array. Not really graveyard, but there are empty graves which appear to have been dug up outside the Satellite Array. We can find the graves within inside here. Now, also on this toilet, we can find a copy of Pugilism Illustrated, a really good find indeed. Now, this particular Satellite Array is behind a hard lock, so you need 75 lockpick to open it from the outside. However, from the inside, there is a very easy lock terminal, so you can easily hack it and then also disengage the lock. But if you're coming from the outside, you have to have 75 lockpick. Anyways, after unlocking everything, make sure you make your way to the top of Satellite Array C, because there are 2 mini nukes on top of this statue, or like scarecrow at the top, which the raiders might have been using for target practice. Be careful not to fall off like I almost did. Now, back in Satellite Array B, there is something very interesting. A giant teddy bear, a legendary teddy bear, is hidden behind this wall. Now, according to the wiki, you can use the third-person glitch to access this teddy bear. However, I had no luck, and after reading many forums on Reddit and asking people, there appears to be a way to create a big enough explosion to get the teddy bear pushed to you. However, none of this was successful, so I'm about to tell you the easiest way to access this teddy bear. Go to Minefield. At Minefield, make sure you pick up at least 10 or so mines. Once you have these mines, head back to the Satellite Array. Also, make sure there are no teddy bears within your inventory, because if you have a teddy bear, a normal teddy bear within your inventory, this will stack with the legendary teddy bear, making it normal size. As you can see, this teddy bear is ginormous. It is much, much, much bigger than a normal teddy bear. After this, walk to the corner of the chemistry set, start putting these frag mines at the corner between the desk and the wall, as I did, then shoot one of the frag mines like so, and the teddy bear should start phasing itself through the wall. After this, we can pick it up and put it in our house as decoration. Might take several attempts to get it done right, so make sure you save before trying this. After that, we can head to the southwest of the Satcom Array, and if we head on down, we will see a shack. This shack is actually occupied by the Brotherhood Outcast, and they just so happened at this time to be attacked by the Talon Company. Together, we could easily defeat the Talon Company together, no match for us and the Outcasts. Now, at this shack, there are 2 things of note. The first thing is on the other side, or like opposite of this workbench, as you can see there, we can find a shish kebab blueprint, which is pretty good, schematics for a shish kebab. There's also some ammunition boxes with random ammunition inside. Also, on top of the shack, we can find a Nuka-Cola Quantum. However, we do have to shoot it down from up here. I was trying to use my 10mm Chinese pistol. However, that was not sufficient enough to knock it down. Then, all of a sudden, I got attacked by Enclave. One of them had a missile launcher, but for some reason, he was friendly to me. I have no idea why that is. That is random. There are 2 random encounters possible here, just so you know, but I had a friendly Enclave soldier for some reason. I used my sniper rifle to knock off the Nuka-Cola Quantum, and then I could pick it up. After that, I decided to finally help out against the Enclave. However, the Enclave were victorious over the Outcast, but they were not victorious against me and Dogmeat, as we killed the last Enclave soldier. Now, as I just said, there are 2 random encounters possible near Satcom Array NN-03D. Don't know why that one soldier was friendly, but hey, whatever. Back in my house in Megaton, I decided to go ahead and display the giant teddy bear. I decided to put him over here on this chair. After a couple of, well, not really minutes, but maybe 30 seconds or so fooling around, I was able to place him on top of the chair. And then I placed my miniature gnomes and my miniature whiskey bottle on this table on the 2nd floor. Just some really cool and unique decoration. Also, I placed this dog bowl that I found earlier underneath the table for my good friend and good girl, Dogmeat. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. I had a ton of fun making this episode because this location was so freaking awesome. Satcom Array NN-03D has so much to offer to the player character, but it's just really kind of out of the way. It's kind of isolated and it's so easy to overlook. And a lot of the loot within it, like the giant teddy bear, is pretty difficult to access. However, we do have a skill magazine, we have some Nuka-Cola Quantum, we have some schematics, we have some miniature garden gnomes, and we have some mini nukes. Some freaking awesome loot at an otherwise, just random kind of unimportant location. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. If you have any recommendations for a future video or future idea, please post them in the comment section below. And as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the 50th episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out Paradise Falls, or known as the Paradise Falls Shopping Center in the pre-war era. However, by the time of Fallout 3, it is run by Eulogy Jones, and is the epicenter of the Capital Wasteland's slave trade, making it a pretty dark place within Fallout 3. But of course, Fallout 3 is full of choices, and you can either choose to help the slavers, or to work against them. Also worth mentioning that this location was recommended to me by Wesley Gossett almost 8 months ago. I apologize for taking so long to get here, but we're finally here, and part of the reason was, I knew it would be hell of a fight. So, Paradise Falls is located in the center northern part of the map. It's kind of isolated from other locations, but it's very recognizable on the world map, just because of the road situation. Now, as I approached towards Paradise Falls, I came from the northwest, and there was actually a lot going up on this ridge, a lot more than I could have ever anticipated. There was some Yaogwai that attacked me and Dogmeat, and also there was a sentry bot. That was quite a difficult fight, but a lot of crazy things started happening, and it was pretty cool. You can see the sentry bot there on the top of the hill that is just overlooking Paradise Falls. And as the fight began to take off, I decided to use missiles, and the sentry bot was also using missiles, and there are tons of cars on the road to my left, and they just started blowing up like crazy. There was so much chaos, who knows what happened to poor Dogmeat, but yeah, in all the chaos, we came out on top, so that's what I'm talking about. And there is one really interesting thing of note on this roadway that's just northwest of Paradise Falls. Besides, obviously, all the cars up here where people probably died during the Great War when the atomic bombs went off, there is one car that is standing perfectly up straight in the ground. And I thought that was really odd. And when I approached this location, this car is actually what drew me to this area. It's kind of a really odd sight. The car is right here, just sticking up straight out of the ground, right next to this tree. Don't know how it got like that or why it's there, but I thought it was interesting. Now, on the northern side of Paradise Falls, there's really nothing over on this area. And in fact, Paradise Falls is a very isolated place, and I guess it makes sense, right? There's slavers that inhabit it, so people don't want to go near it. And the first time you try to enter, you'll be confronted by this guy, Grouse. And Grouse is a bit of a dick, obviously. He's a slaver, and he's responsible for letting in customers or slavers. And, of course, he charges you to enter, or you have to complete a quest, enslaving 5 people for him. Or you can just do what I did, and that was kill him. But this conversation is quite long, and you can try and negotiate with him, but I could not get in for free. So you know what? It's his time to kill some slavers. So I opened fire on Grouse, and then he had his pal in the back, who, we also killed, me and Dogmeat, just a normal slaver. Now as we approach the actual door to Paradise Falls, for the first time you'll encounter 3 NPCs, Forty here, Carter, and Sammy. Now, unfortunately, our friend Carter, who is a slave, will always die. His death is unpreventable, at least on console. Obviously, on PC, you could use console commands. But here we are killing 40, and as we approach, you're going to see Carter running away from Paradise Falls. However, he has an explosive neck collar on him that will detonate. I tried to shoot him to scare him away, which worked for a little bit. But when I put my weapon away, Carter became friendly again, and he started running again, and then pop goes the weasel. So while very unfortunate, it is unavoidable. Now if we head on over, we can find Sammy, who is a child slave, and this is really dark for a video game. Anyways, if you talk to Sammy, he'll mention that he has other friends inside, and that they need to get home. They're from Little Lamplight. So of course, being the respectable gentleman that I am, and already kind of making myself an enemy of the slavers, I decide to help him. Now over here in the northern kind of corner, there's like a tree and some stuff, but there's really nothing over here. And I think this area feels really empty, and I wish there was a bit more to it just to make it feel more like, hey, these are slavers, they're very bad, but they have a very large trade going on. Anyways, as we approach, we can see some bodies or skeletons up in the Paradise Falls sign, and then we have a large fight ahead of us, as at this point, every slaver in existence, well, hates us. So, just make your way through. Luckily, I have Dogmeat with me, who is an absolute boss, and just kind of make your way through the slavers if you chosen this path. Obviously, you could choose the peaceful path, which I will showcase a bit more later in this video, if you want to see what it looks like to be more evil. But all of these people will attack you, even Clover here, who is actually a slave to Eulogy Jones, the leader. I use a mini nuke here, and that was pretty successful, actually, in getting rid of a lot of them. Then there's a slaver up top with a minigun. I was trying to snipe him because I didn't realize you could go up there. Then I was like, oh wow, Dogmeat's up there. Go, Dogmeat. And then, yeah, there's a staircase, though, behind. That'll allow you to go up there. And then as we continue on into Paradise Falls, we're just going to have to kill everyone, really, at this point. Except for, of course, the slaves that are in the cages. They will remain on your side, obviously. Now, some of these are named NPCs, some of them are just slaver. Either way, make sure you loot all their bodies. That way you get some ammunition, you can fix up your guns. And, it's pretty good loot, actually. Over here we have the bar or kitchen area. On the pool table, make sure to pick up the break, which is a unique melee weapon. It's a unique pool cue. And inside this room, we can find the leader, Eulogy Jones, who has some kind of sexy shenanigans going on in here, but none of my business. Anyways, he's actually kind of difficult because he has a scoped 44 on him, which deals hell of a lot of damage. And then Dogmeat ran in there after that grenade. I threw a grenade in after Dogmeat. Either way, Dogmeat's okay, and we were able to kill Eulogy Jones. Now, underneath the staircase here, you can find 5 bottles of Nuka-Cola Quantum, which is pretty darn good. So make sure you take all of these bottles. Now, one of them is kind of hidden, or not really hidden, it's just kind of difficult to get. And I was trying to pick up this box like an absolute idiot. And I was like, wait, I have a shotgun, I can just shoot the box. Wow, way to go there, Otter. Anyways, back in the main room, we can find the holotape. And this has a very interesting recording.
We have a little assignment from the Commonwealth. A very important slave escaped into the wasteland. Well, it's not exactly a slave. It's what they call an android, a kind of synthetic man. The important thing isn't what this guy is. The important thing is the job pays more than you can imagine. He thinks the synth man might be looking to get in touch with a doctor or a tech head. If you want to cut, then get a move on.
This is one of many ways to start the quest, The Replicated Man, And also there's the bobblehead for speech, make sure you pick that up. But anyways, more about the replicated man. He is from the Commonwealth, which we just started our series on, obviously, in Fallout 4. And obviously, he is a synth. He's not human. Or at least he's not human from a biological perspective, but maybe he's more human than some humans, like these slavers, haha. But yeah, anyways, big reference to the Commonwealth. Obviously, this game was well before Fallout 4. Also, there's a terminal and a safe, but there's really nothing in the safe, but you can still open it for the EX or the XP, and you can pick it or use your hacking skills to get it open. Besides that, there's really not a whole lot in here. Now, up here, we can actually find a small balcony with a bathtub, so I just like to imagine Eulogy Jones takes baths in front of everyone, staring at his creation. Then, near the entrance to Paradise Falls, we can find the slaver barracks, and here is Caroline Red. And man, am I very happy about this killing, as you'll see later for a certain reason. Anyways, inside the slaver barracks, this is obviously where the slavers would live and hang out. The pool table is set up for beer pong, which is pretty hilarious. Obviously a very popular drinking game. And around here, there's really not a whole bunch in the way of loot. But on the shelf over here, we can find a Vault 77 jumpsuit and a very, very interesting holotape.
Like I told you, man, I don't fucking know where it came from, but it freaks the boys out. Some story from a while back about a stranger with no name. Just get rid of the damn thing. Ain't no good gonna come from keeping it around. Besides, if it is his, maybe he'll come back for it. Comprende?
Now, obviously, every vault had an experiment going on, and in Vault 77, only one man entered the entire vault, and he was only given an entire crate of puppets for company. So, obviously, he went absolutely fucking insane. Now, Vault 77 was featured in a promotional crossover comic strip entitled One Man and a Crate of Puppets that was released to promote Fallout 3. And by the sounds of it, it sounds like these slavers had a very bad encounter with, well, somebody wearing that jumpsuit. Obviously, the survivor of Vault 77 would have died a long time ago. Now, in the building next door, we can find the clinic, and this clinic is a bit dark. I got stuck there for a second, but then we killed Cutter really easily. And that name might be a bit scary, and there are some interesting things going on in here. Notably, there's like a lot of children's stuff. There's like a crib and a teddy bear, and we can imagine that slaves are probably taken here for their collars or for medical checkups or physical checkups to make sure they can be sold off to the next person. Pretty freaking dark. Also, this room looks pretty terrible. There's ant meat. Why is there so many meats on the floor? Is it Arby's? I don't know. Now, after that, I decided to actually head over to the slave pens, and we can find the adult slaves and the kid slaves. Now, the adult slaves make up various people, including Breadbox, who is an old man that has lost his mind. We can assume that he has really bad dementia or Alzheimer's. Then there is this ghoul lady who's also a bit whacked. And inside of the slave house, there's just a bunch of beds in really bad living conditions. Looks like there's blood on the floor. It looks like it smells really bad. There's fungus in the corner. It's just terrible. Over here, we can find an average locked gate. There's just one bed inside and no loot. Not sure why it's there. Then over here, we can find the children. And upon opening the gate, you can talk to Squirrel, and he says that somehow, someway, he has disabled or shorted the fence system, so nobody's collars will explode anymore. That is very convenient. Glad I didn't have to do that. Thanks, Todd. Anyways, they will now pretty much escape on their own, and you can enter the children's slave room. Now, they'll run into the building next to the slave pens. Just wanted to point out, in this box here, we can find Rory. And poor Rory here was really good friends with the children, but upon engaging in hostile activities with the slavers, they will kill Rory, but you can save him if you're peaceful up to a point. And then in here, the children will escape through this tunnel, but we cannot fit in it because we're not a child. So we don't know what's in there, but they will escape to the outside. Now, since the fence thing is now shorted thanks to Squirrel, we can actually tell all of the adults to escape as well. However, Breadbox is too stupid, or not really stupid, but his Alzheimer's is too far advanced that he won't escape. But the other guys, they will just make a run for it, and if there's any slavers left, they will be gunned down instantly, because they have very low health. So do be careful when you tell them to escape. Make sure you've actually killed all of the slavers, otherwise these slaves are toast. But after you free them, they'll just run off into the Capital Wasteland, and they're free, and you're a good person. Wow, look at that. After that, I headed outside, and I talked with Sammy. And Sammy here was very grateful, obviously, and he said he'd meet up with his friends and head back to Little Lamplight. Now, I was reading on the wiki. Sometimes they'll spawn on the other side of Paradise Falls, Sammy and his friends, outside of, like, the sewer system. For whatever reason, though, Sammy was still at the entrance, but more convenient for me. After that, I realized I almost forgot to enter Lock and Load. This is like the armory slash weapons vendor for Paradise Falls. Pretty easy to kill them, but then we can steal this silenced 10mm pistol and just kind of take whatever loot that you want. There's a lot of good guns, and something that is important to note is stealing inside Paradise Falls does not result in negative karma. While it's still stealing, there's no karma loss, which I think makes a lot of sense. Stealing from slavers doesn't seem bad to me. Now, within the armory, there's some interesting things, like this skeleton in a cage with a party hat. Also, there's a door that we can take, and if we follow these doors, it leads us to this basement, and there's a lot of cages and some skeletons down here. This skeleton appears to have had his or her leg cut off and put in a bathtub for some reason. Don't know what's going on there. There's all the cages. Pretty terrible stuff. But anyways, as I mentioned earlier, the area around Paradise Falls is rather empty. And directly to the east of Paradise Falls, I honestly had no clue what was here between Paradise Falls and the Germantown Police headquarters. And I found out there's pretty much fucking nothing. Now, if we head to the southeast, we can find this abandoned, obviously destroyed house. And inside this house is a copy of Guns and Bullets on the bookshelf. So definitely make sure to come down here and get your free copy of Guns and Bullets. Pretty freaking easy. But besides that, there really isn't a whole lot in this house. I decided to check out the mailbox. There was some pre-war money that I didn't pick up because I'm an idiot. But anyways, a vertibird then took off, and I was like, oh, there's an enclave spot here, which is pretty cool. And then I realized we had 3 enclave soldiers fighting 3 super mutants, and I just could not help myself from intervening. I pulled out a mini nuke to fire off at the super mutants, which actually managed to kill one of the enclave soldiers. I was pretty impressed. And then I used a minigun to deal with the enclave. And this battle was pretty freaking awesome. I was not expecting it, and I got some pretty decent loot out of it. Mainly, I was able to repair my Tesla power armor because one of the enclave soldiers had it. So, thank you very much, good sir. I really appreciate that. And as promised, I decided to show you around a bit Paradise Falls when you're friendly with the slavers. And one thing is for sure, I mean, these people are slavers, but they are really fucking rude.
The fuck you looking at, huh?
Sorry, bro. Got nothing to say to you.
I can't believe that
I can't believe that Grouse let you in here.
You don't exactly look like you.
No, it is not nice. What do you want?
Why, look what we have here. Some fresh meat, right out of the wastes. You just want to go ahead and jump in the pen with the others? Or should I beat you senseless and drag you there myself?
Hello, I am Ymir.
At least Ymir is nice. But Eulogy Jones is also quite respectful towards you, even if he is an evil scumbag. And we can negotiate the price for the 3 children in the cages. So there is a way to free the children and remain on good terms with the slavers. It'll cost you 2,000 caps, or if you can pass a speech check, it'll cost you 1,200 caps. And then the children will meet you at the front entrance. At first they are hesitant, but then you're like, shut up, you dumb asshole. I'm trying to rescue you. And then they're like, oh, okay. We don't really trust you, though. That's a little bit weird. Random strangers just don't pay 1,200 caps for random people they don't know in order to rescue them. But that is exactly what I did because, well, I am amazing. Anyways, after that, we will leave. And the children shout, we're free! Wow, just do that right in front of the slavers, why don't you? Idiots. Anyways, guys, there you have it. Paradise Falls, perhaps one of the most evil places in the Capital Wasteland. Of course, the Enclave and Raven Rock might just take the cake, but it's a pretty close call. What do you guys think? What is your guys' opinion of Paradise Falls? While I do think it's an interesting location, it's very dark, it does add a lot to the Capital Wasteland and the eastern part of America in the Fallout universe. I do feel like the area around it is pretty empty, considering it's the headquarters of the slave trade. Within the Capital Wasteland, I would expect a little bit more in terms of like city and money and this things going on. But with that being said, it is worth mentioning that traveling merchants will stop by Paradise Falls. Man, they are pretty freaking brave, like Doc Hoff here. And the last thing of interest is that there's this large statue of a boy with an ice cream hovering above, or just standing above, Paradise Falls Shopping Center. And this boy was influenced by the Big Boy restaurant mascot. Now, Big Boy is a burger chain within the United States. It's still operational, I found out. And the reason I say that is I never went there. I never even knew about it until I moved to Japan. Big Boy is really popular in Japan. However, in Japan, it's not a hamburger restaurant. It's like a meatloaf or Hamburg steak restaurant, which I thought was really funny. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any recommendations or ideas for future videos, please post them in the comments section below. And as always, until next time.
Hello, I am Ymir.
Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out Reclining Groves Resort Homes, which is just northeast of Paradise Falls. Now, this location is pretty small, but there is a lot of pretty good loot in this area, along with some random encounters, and depending on where you are in the main quest, there are some pretty big differences at this location, so let's dive on into it. And here's the location on the world map. Like I said before, it's just northeast of Paradise Falls. Now, the first time you approach, if you haven't completed the Waters of Life quest, there will be a scavenger and his dog to the east in the farm, but more about that later. Now, the first time I approached here, I had a random encounter with some outcast and a Deathclaw. Now, the Deathclaw was already pretty low health, and I was able to finish him off, but the outcast did not survive because of these rad scorpions. But after killing off all of the rad scorpions, I was able to explore these old homes. Now, in my mind, because it's Reclining Groves Resort Homes, I imagine this was some kind of timeshare in the pre-war era. Maybe these were vacation homes or something like that, or just a residential area. Now, there's really not much besides the ruins of a few houses, but to the northeasternmost house, we can find a copy of Junktown Jerky Vendor, which is pretty good. It's on the bookshelf here. I missed it at first, but the second time around, I came around and I found it. There it is. Now, as I was saying, a scavenger and his dog will spawn in this farm over here if you have not completed the Waters of Life quest. But if you've completed the Waters of Life quest like I have, this will turn into an Enclave outpost. Who knows what happened to the scavenger? I hope him and his dog made it out okay. But knowing the Enclave, maybe that is not what happened. Now, unfortunately, I cannot trade with the scavenger, but there is a lot of great loot at the Enclave outpost, so we'll definitely take all of that awesome ammunition. But the benefit to coming to this farm after the Waters of Life quest is we can take whatever we want. If you come here and the scavenger and his dog are still alive, it is considered stealing. But if you come here after the quest, well, nothing is stealing. So we can take all of these ammunition boxes and, well, nothing bad will happen. Now, there is a very hard locked footlocker here, and the key is, well, nearly impossible to get. It is actually underneath this bus. And according to the Fallout Wiki, the key is directly underneath that little wooden box you see there. And I tried and I tried and I tried to get the key by using explosives, by using mini nukes, and I tried for a good 10 to 15 minutes, but I was never able to actually recover the key. According to the wiki, you can use frag grenades in order to get the key. However, I cannot find any evidence of this anywhere online, so you can try it yourself if you want. So the other options are you can use console commands to put yourself underneath the bus and get the key, or you can have 100 lockpick and pick the lock. Now, it is in your interest to pick the lock because there's a Chinese training manual inside which will increase your sneak. But we'll come back to this a little bit later in the video. For now, if we head northeast of the farm, we can find some boat flies, and it's a little bit hard to find maybe at first, but like I said, just directly northeast of the farm, we'll find these dead mercenaries, some boat flies, and a U.S. Army flamethrower manual, which will increase your big gun skills, so pretty darn good. After that, we can make our way across from the farm. We find this kind of dirt road leading to the farm. We can cross the main road and up another dirt road. And if you follow this dirt road to the left, you'll find an ambush by several super mutants. So make sure to kill those super mutants. There's about 3 of them, and depending on your level, they will be easy or difficult. Obviously, normal super mutants to super mutant overlords. But yeah, not too bad. And if we head on back to the dirt path and we go right, we find a very interesting kind of area that's very easy to miss called the Warren. Inside of the Warren, it's really just a cave filled with several vicious dogs, but pretty easy to kill them and to clear them. Now, as we make our way back through the cave, eventually you'll come across this skeleton, and next to the skeleton are a couple of stim packs. And if we go all the way to the back of the cave, we can find a dead mercenary with some ammo, along with a dead wastelander. Then if we head on back, we can also find this rotting Brahmin corpse. Now, when I left the cave, there was another kind of like random encounter with these raiders attacking this robo-brain. So I went ahead and killed all of the raiders, and this actually helped me level up. And upon leveling up, I was able to increase my lockpick skill to 100, which would enable me to pick that very hard lock from earlier, which is exactly what I intended to do. So we headed back to the farmhouse, went to the very hard lock, and we were able to pick it without much difficulty, surprisingly, and inside we can take that Chinese Special Ops manual to increase our sneak. And there you have it, Reclining Groves Resort Homes. This is a very interesting location because it changes a lot over the course of the game. I hope that Scavenger and his dog are okay, and that they made it out all right before the arrival of the Enclave, but I'm going to assume the worst. And there's a lot of things you can easily miss in this location, notably 3 skill books, so make sure you pick up those bad boys the next time you come on through. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have any recommendations for future videos, future ideas, future locations, please post them in the comment section below. And as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and we are finally back in Fallout 3. I do apologize because it's been a while. Today we're going to be checking out the Montgomery County Reservoir, which is kind of a random area in the northern, kind of northeastern middle part of the map. And this location is actually based on the real-world Triadelphia Reservoir in Montgomery County, Maryland, which is of course where we get the name Montgomery County Reservoir. And this reservoir in real life has a huge dam that helps keep the water in, of course, and it looks very beautiful. However, I don't see any remnants of a dam in this area, so perhaps it collapsed a long time ago. And with that, let's go ahead and jump on into it. And as I said, Montgomery County Reservoir is in the northern part of the map, almost directly north of Paradise Falls. And as you approach, you're going to see this water tower if you come from the east like I did, but there's really nothing at this water tower just besides, well, radioactive water. Now, this location is inhabited by some raiders, but apparently depending on your level, a sentry bot might spawn. I am curious if this only happens maybe with broken steel, because I'm pretty high level now, level 18 or 19, something like that. Anyways, there was no sentry bot, so I'm wondering if it's connected to broken steel, which I do not have installed yet on this playthrough. Anyways, there was no sentry bot, but there were this group of raiders, which were pretty easy to kill thanks to dog meat and this shotgun. So go ahead and kill whoever is inhabiting this area. And we can see that this reservoir kind of has these large water drums. Don't know if they're for purifying water or for some kind of like waste or something like that. There is a similar place in Fallout New Vegas, Clark Field, which has the same water drums. And that place was actually a small power station and nuclear storage site. so perhaps it's kind of a similar purpose here. Now, if we come over here alongside the road, we can find this truck that obviously drove off a bit. In the back of it, we can find some mutilated bodies, but there's really nothing in here besides just random junk inside of these boxes. If you drop below, we can find where the front of the truck drove off, and there's a body hanging from the trailer. Up here, we can find this kind of weird machine. Perhaps it was used for purifying water or doing something with the reservoir. And over here, we can find some giant rad scorpions, so be careful of them. Then if we head up to the northwest, we can find this farm that is right next to the reservoir. However, it is an unmarked location within the game, so let's go ahead and check it out. Over here, we have this kind of makeshift shack, and there's going to be 3 ammunition crates inside of it with just random ammunition. So not bad, make sure you take a look. Over here we have this burnt down house, but there's really nothing in the house to note. So it's just here for aesthetic. And then if we head on over to the silo, we can actually go inside of the silo, as is the case with most silos in Fallout 3. And inside we can find an assault rifle, some ammunition, and also a medical crate. The ammunition is on top of the first aid kit, as you can see there. There's also a ladder, and if you climb up the ladder, do be careful because it will spawn Talon Company mercs or regulators depending on your level. They will spawn below you inside of the barn. I just kind of jumped off in order to go fight them. And something kind of funny happened here. Since some of the mercs only had melee weapons, they ran towards the dead raider bodies to go pick up their guns, which was kind of smart for one of them because he was able to get a gun, but then me and Dogmeat ended his life. Up here we can find some more ammunition boxes inside of the barn. Also wanted to mention, on top of the silo, before you jump off like I did, there are also ammunition boxes up there. And guys, that pretty much covers Montgomery County Reservoir. This is a pretty small location, but it does add to the lore in the world of Fallout 3 and connects it to our own world. If only there was some kind of cool dam to explore. Alright everyone, thank you so much for watching, and if you have any recommendations or ideas for future videos, future locations, please post them in the comments section below, and as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out the Regulator HQ, which is just a small farmhouse that is just east of Scrapyard and north of the Wheaton Armory. And this location can only be found if you bring on the Lawbringer perk, which requires you to have good karma at the time that you get it, and this will allow you to collect fingers from evil people, and then you can turn in the fingers at this location for 5 caps a finger, or if you have above 750 karma rating, then you will get double the amount, 10 caps per finger. So let's dive into the Regulator HQ. Now, depending on your level, the first time you approach, you might have some giant rad scorpions spawn out, killing all of the Brahmin.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No! No!
And while it might be sad to see all these Brahmin being massacred, all we can really do is just count our lucky stars that we didn't encounter Deathclaws or Yaoguai, which can also spawn here for higher levels. And as we enter the Regulator HQ, it's just kind of this standard 2-story farmhouse that we see around Fallout 3 and sometimes in Fallout New Vegas. Now, since we are on the same side as the Regulators, we can take anything inside of the building and it won't count as stealing. So make sure you go around and get what you need. And in the back of this room, in the locker, there's a Nuka-Cola Quantum and also a skeleton taking a bath. As we come in here, we find a very suspicious Regulator listening to Enclave Radio.
Hey.
I think these Regulators better be careful because they might have a snake within their organization. Anyways, in the back of this locker, we can find a garden gnome carefully watching over the room. Over here, we have this really weird kind of like shrine or maybe knife throwing thing for a Brahmin. Don't know if it's a shrine for a Brahmin or just a knife throwing practice. I'd like to think it's a shrine to a Brahmin and that the Regulators worship Brahmin, but that's just my headcanon. Now over here we can find Sonora Cruz, and she is the leader of the Regulators, and you want to turn in all of your fingers to her in order to collect your caps. Now, it is a small amount of caps, but considering anybody in the game with negative karma will give you a finger, including Raiders, Enclave, and the likes, which there are a lot of them, then this is actually a pretty good way to make some extra caps, because you're going to be killing a lot of those kind of people. So come here, get your free caps. And also, there are some more medical supplies up here, and most importantly, underneath the bed here, we can find a copy of Guns and Bullets, which will raise your small guns by 1. And that pretty much sums up Regulator HQ, a pretty nice little area to make some extra money, and just to get some extra supplies. For me, there were a lot of stim packs here, which is always very useful in Fallout 3. What do you guys think of the Regulators? Do you guys use the Lawbringer perk? Let me know in the comments section below. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have any recommendations or ideas for future videos, future locations, please post them in the comment section below. And as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out Wheaton Armory, which is a location kind of in the northern eastern part of the map. It is near Scrapyard and just west of Vault 108. Now, obviously, Wheaton Armory is a pre-war armory or military installation for the United States Army, and we can see by the building here that it may have been targeted in a nuclear attack, as the entire part of the building was completely wiped out and just kind of the center part of the building is left standing. Today, Wheaton Armory is inhabited by several raiders, and there's also some enclave nearby if you've completed the quest, The Waters of Life. So let's go ahead and jump on into it. Now, I approached Wheaton Armory from the north. As you can see, I'm walking south here, and there were these enclave over here that were attacking the raiders. There was actually a firefight going on, but the enclave really didn't care about the raiders. They cared much more about me. However, they were no match for my missile launcher, so I was able to take them out relatively easily. And then I was able to loot their bodies for some good loot. After that, going inside of Wheaton Armory, we have to go through this cage that is unlocked, so it's pretty easy. Then we have this like little guard outpost. There's a few of these within the facility. However, this guard outpost on the southern end has nothing inside of it. After that, we will approach like the main kind of central area of Wheaton Armory, and you're going to have a large firefight with a half dozen or so raiders. Probably a bit more than that, but go ahead and start taking them out. Dogmeat and I made quick work of them. Some of them were really easy to kill. Some of them had a lot more health, but they gave me a lot more XP when I killed them. You can see his head fell off. Here I almost got a direct hit from that missile. This raider is very mean using a missile launcher, but no match at close range. And again, another head went flying. Now, this building, unfortunately, does not have a whole lot of loot inside of it. As we said before, it was maybe destroyed in a nuclear explosion, completely missing half of it, or half of the wall. However, on the very top floor, there is this door, and if we open it, we can find the only loot within the building, some ammunition boxes and first aid boxes with, obviously, first aid and ammunition. So make sure you get those because, yeah, it's pretty good. In the back of the truck in the central area, again, we have this grenade box, some first aid boxes, and ammunition. So make sure you come on in and pick it all up. There's also some jet on the table. Now, as we head towards the main facility, we have kind of these two guard outposts, and this one has a locked safe with some random decent loot inside. And across from that outpost is another one. However, this one just has some metal boxes with random junk inside of it. And then here on the western end, we approach the main facility for Wheaton Armory. We cannot use the garage doors. We have to go in through that door. Immediately upon entering, you'll notice that you will be hit with some radiation, and you're going to have to deal with the radiation throughout this entire facility. There's a radio in here playing Enclave propaganda, so let's turn that off. Now, for the most part, it's pretty easy to navigate this building. There's only one enemy inside, and that's a turret, which we will show later. So just kind of make your way through, look for some loot. Like as you can see there are some ammunition boxes and some Rad-X and Radaway, which are pretty helpful. And then you can get some more stim packs and stuff like that. Keep making your way down, look for some ammunition boxes. Eventually you're going to come to this long hallway on the main area on the bottom, and there's going to be a turret shooting at you. However, we can take cover in this little side room here, which has some ammunition boxes, also a first aid box, And there's also an average lock turret control terminal, which we can hack, and upon hacking it, we can then deactivate the turret, so it's no longer a threat to us. One way to deal with it, otherwise you could just shoot it. Now, in this next part, you need 100 lockpick or 100 science in order to get this door open. I have 100 lockpicks, so that's how we will get inside. Inside of this room, we have a plethora of weapons and ammunition. Highly recommend you take everything that you can carry. It would be wise to come to this location with not much loot in your inventory, that way you can carry a lot. But there's so many ammunition boxes, you have mines, rad-X, hazmat suits, and also a copy of the US Army 30 handy flamethrower recipes, which of course will increase your big gun skill by 1. Now back in the main room, I just wanted to point out it appears to be some kind of missile silo. Perhaps there is a nuclear warhead in the silo that was never launched. Perhaps it was targeted by the Chinese for this reason, which would explain the destruction outside, and perhaps the warhead was damaged, which is why the inside area is so radioactive. And then as we come to the southern area, we found a lone raider kind of at this outpost. And after killing that raider, we can make our way up to this southern outpost, which is obviously just used for guards. And inside we can find some ammunition boxes. Again, this place is quite good if you need ammunition or weapons, also a first aid box. You can also climb up to the very top where we have these radio masts, but they don't really serve any purpose besides just being aesthetic and looking really cool as they tower over this facility. And there you guys have it, Wheaton Armory. Now, I'll be honest, this is a location I have no memory of, despite the fact that it is quite big. There's a lot of enemies here and some really good weapons and ammunition. I never remember visiting here. I very well could have, just could have bad memory, but I really enjoyed exploring this place, getting ammunition, going through that old missile silo. It was a lot of fun. So if you've never been here, I'd highly recommend checking it out, as it's just kind of a cool place to visit in the Capital Wasteland. Alright guys, if you have any ideas or recommendations for future videos, future ideas, please post them in the comment section below. And as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out the VAPL 66 power station, which is just northeast of the Dunwich building. However, the more interesting thing in this location is the Signal Sierra Victor, which is a transmission from a radio antenna not far away, which can lead us to a drainage chamber that has all kinds of booby traps and some really good loot inside. And between these two locations, we can find 2 mini nukes, so it's definitely worth your time to make your trip way out here in order to grab those mini nukes. So let's waste no more time and let's jump on into it. So first is the VAPL 66 power station, which is just a generic Fallout 3 power station. Again, northeast of Dunwich building, near Joko's Pop and Gas stop. Now, as we approach, we'll just find the power station, and there's a metal caged area, and apparently upon entering it, it will trigger a scripted event where a group of raiders will approach from the east. However, I never saw these raiders approach, so I don't know if it was glitched for me, or if I just missed them, because apparently they approach slowly, but yeah, I never saw them. Anyways, inside of the facility, we can find a very disturbing scene. On the table, we can find a copy of Dean's Electronics, along with some medical supplies like stim packs and some chems like Mentats and Psycho. Now, like I said, there is a disturbing scene here in the western part of the room. We have a bloodied body on a bed and some corpses hanging from the ceiling. And over here, just off the desk, we can find that mini nuke. Pretty darn good find. Then back outside, we can head towards the east, and up on the hill here you will see that radio antenna, which I mentioned in the introduction. And once you reach this, you can turn on the power to the radio antenna, and this will activate Signal Sierra Victor. Now you don't need to listen to it, it's just the generic Morse code that plays in Fallout 3. And if we come up toward the hill here, we will find this parked car with 2 skeletons on the hood. They probably met their unfortunate demise during the Great War. Perhaps they were a young couple having a romantic moment when the world ended. We can cross this canyon across this fallen radio antenna to find the drainage chamber. Inside of the chamber, we will find various traps, including these 2 pressure plates at the beginning, attached to these rigged shotguns. We can disarm the rigged plates, and then also disarm the shotguns for their ammunition, and also just for some more combat shotguns. Now, as you jump across, you will activate some grenades by accident, like I did. Make sure you get away, unlike what I did. Otherwise, you're going to probably break your leg, like I did. And we can enter the main room. Thankfully, in the main room, there are no more traps besides a booby trap terminal, which will only activate if you use said terminal, so just ignore the terminal. We can find some ammunition boxes, one of which is locked, so make sure you pick it to find some random ammunition. Over here, we can probably find the poor soul that was in this place. Maybe he blew himself up with a battery, who knows. But on the table next to him, we can find a copy of Duck and Cover, along with that next mini nuke on the table. There's some frag mines, and over here on the workbench, we can find a bottle cap mine, which is extremely powerful. So make sure you pick up that bad boy. And on the other entrance to the main room, there are some frag mines. So be careful, make sure you disarm them. And as I headed back outside, I found this Enclave soldier had just killed a Yao Guai, and then I blew up the Enclave soldier with a missile launcher. So some kind of crazy stuff happening outside, so be careful when you're in this area. And there you guys have it. VA-PL 66 power station alongside Signal Sierra Victor. These are two really awesome locations. Actually, I wish I would have seen the Raider encounter. I don't know what happened. If you guys have ever experienced the Raider encounter here at the power station, please post it in the comment section below. But yeah, it looks like it just kind of glitched out for me, which is unfortunate. But Signal Victor Sierra is really freaking cool. The Booby Traps has a lot of environmental storytelling about a probably doomsday prepper that was ready for the apocalypse, but maybe he blew himself up with a battery. Who knows? Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. If you have any ideas or recommendations for future locations, future video ideas, please post them in the comment section below. And as always, until next time.
According to reports from the ever-so hoity-toity Tenpenny Tower, a group of displaced ghouls have been trying to gain entrance. But lush at large Alistair Tenpenny says, no zombies, no how. Come on, Al, cut the ghoulies a break. If they've got the caps and you've got the space, it's a win-win, right? What do you say? Until next time, this is Three Dog, ow! And you're listening to Galaxy News Radio, bringing you the truth, no matter how...
Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be taking a look at the ever-so-famous Tenpenny Tower. Now this is a location that I have a lot of memories of from the first time that I ever played this game, and I was kind of shocked at the outcome of my decisions. And we'll talk more about that as we progress through the video. We'll be showing two different outcomes that are possible with Tenpenny Tower, and we learn that both sides are kind of fucking dicks, so there is really no good true ending to this place. But let's go ahead and dive into it. As you probably know, Tenpenny Tower is in the southern part of the map, kind of a bit to the west, but mainly in the middle of the map. We're also going to be looking at the nearby Warrington Station and Warrington Train Yard. Now, if you approach from the south, kind of like I do, you will find all of these houses that are just below, kind of surrounding Tenpenny Tower. However, these houses don't have any, name or anything for this neighborhood, so I'm assuming it's just a part of Warrington, which is what I assume this area was called in the pre-war era. Now, unfortunately, none of the houses have any loot except for this house up here by Tenpenny Tower. If we go inside of this house, or what's left of this house, we'll find a bookshelf, and we can find a copy of Duck and Cover on the bookshelf. And something else I just thought I would mention, these can be found around the Capital Wasteland, but inside of the mailbox here, I found a letter from Vault Tech, which is just advertising the vaults, but these are found across the Capital Wasteland in mailboxes. We can find a Red Rocket nuclear coolant replenishment and service station. Now these look a lot better in Fallout 4, one of the improvements they made. The building is actually called Willie's Grocers, so it's a kind of grocery store or just a convenience store. here just east of Tenpenny Tower. Inside, there really isn't a whole lot. We have this annoying radio on the shelf playing music. There's also a hard lock safe, a copy of Tales of a Jerktown Junkie Vendor, which is by far the best thing we can get in here. And inside of the safe, we can actually find decent loot, like a scoped 44, some 44 ammo, and a stealth boy. Back outside, we can find more ruined houses. There's this bus stop here, but unfortunately, there's nothing inside of these houses. Just destroyed and really nothing. Now, if you look over here to the south, we can see this kind of decrepit concrete building. If we go inside, you might actually find some ghouls like I did here. And these ghouls are just trying to make their way to the underworld. So they probably came from pretty far away, and they've just come to the Capital Wasteland. Now, there is really no way to politely end this conversation for whatever reason. So, yeah, I just felt really rude, even though I didn't mean to be to them. Now, if we come over here on the second floor, we can find some stim packs, a scoped 44, and a copy of Tumblers Today, next to this average locked ammunition box, which has 44 ammo inside of it. And if you go up to the top floor that we can still get to, we can get some pretty decent views of Tenpenny Tower. Now, the first time you approach Tenpenny Tower, you're going to find this conversation between Roy Phillips, who is the ghoul here, and then Gustavo, who's on the other side and is the head of Tenpenny Security. And this is the crux of our conflict here at Tenpenny Tower. Roy Phillips leads a pack of ghouls, and they want to live at Tenpenny Tower with the other residents, or at least that is what Roy Phillips claims. However, Gustavo, security, and the residents of Tenpenny Tower don't want any ghouls. So after this, Roy Phillips will walk away back to his hideout, and if you talk on the security intercom, they're very rude to you at first because they think you are Roy Phillips, but after that, you can kind of negotiate and either bribe your way in, or with a speech check, you can get them to open the gate. So after that, you are free to enter Tenpenny Tower. And of course, if you help Mr. Burke during the Megaton Atomic Bomb quest, you also gain access to Tenpenny Tower. Now, once you get inside, you'll be warned not to sneeze in the wrong direction, or else you're going to have trouble. They will open the front gate, and you can pretty much freely come and go to Tenpenny Tower whenever you want. However, if you wish to live here, you have to side with Mr. Burke, and you have to destroy Megaton during the quest. So that is really sad, I think, because there's no other way to gain residence here. Even if you help Roy Phillips and the ghouls, you still cannot live here, which just kind of sucks. But once we're inside, we can talk to Chief Gustavo more, and he gives us some information on Roy Phillips, and we can tell him that, hey, we'll go deal with the ghouls, which is exactly what we're going to do for now. We're going to head to Warrington Train Yard because that is where Roy Phillips and his crew are hanging out. Now, we'll explore this location and Warrington Station more in depth later in the video. For now, I just wanted to focus on the story elements. So as we go through the subway here, you're going to have to fight a lot of ghouls. And if you have broken steel installed, there is a high chance that a feral ghoul reaver will spawn down here. I completely forgot about reavers, and they are a pain in the ass to kill. They just have so much health, but really not that difficult, just kind of a bullet sponge. After that, eventually you'll enter Warrington Station, and you're going to find Michael Masters here, and he'll warn us, but we can just talk to him and then get past him without any violence, and obviously he's not a feral ghoul. Now, there's a few interesting things about Michael Masters. First, he is an esteemed scientist from the pre-war era, and also apparently he used to vacation at Tenpenny Tower in the pre-war area, so he's familiar with it. Also, he's only one of 2 ghouls in the entire series that appears to have retained his human or original eye color, the other one being Moira Brown if Megaton is destroyed in the nuclear explosion. Now, as we continue further into Warrington Station, we will find that there's kind of a labyrinth of tunnels here, and it can take a while or it can be a bit confusing if you're, just kind of being stupid like I am, but eventually just kind of follow the path, follow the tunnels, and eventually you're going to find Roy Phillips and the other members of his crew. Now, he was sleeping at this time, but I just woke him up. Maybe I scared him. But if you talk to Roy Phillips, he insists that he would peacefully live with the humans if they would agree to let them in. However, he believes that they will not let him in, and that he has a more violent option by using an emergency escape door in the basement of Tenpenny Tower that leads into the subway. From there, we could use the door, open the door, and allow feral ghouls to barge into Tenpenny Tower, killing all of the residents.
I'll show them the real monsters. We'll unleash our feral brethren on them. All those bigoted sons of bitches will get torn apart. Trouble is getting past the damn subway access door. You see this? Some kind of escape door that leads from the Tenpenny basement to the subway tunnels. There must be some way to get that open.
After this, I insist that I can talk some sense into the Tenpenny residents so we can come to a peaceful resolution. Now, not much is known about Roy Phillips's history, besides the fact that he is indeed a pre-war ghoul, so he obviously knew the old world. Now, as I left here, I found another feral ghoul reaver. However, when I played through this again, there was no reaver, so obviously this is a random encounter, and a very kind of sad encounter because they're a pain in the ass to kill. After that, I headed back to Tenpenny Tower and entered for the first time. We will find several very well-dressed residents inside. Now, some of these residents, like Anthony Ling, absolutely hate ghouls. Now, Mr. Ling here runs a clothing shop, and he is very competitive against the other clothing store within Tenpenny Tower, run by Lydia Montenegro. Also, Ling is seen flirting with the security guards at Tenpenny Tower and tries to make a lot of advances with them, all the way up to Chief Gustavo. However, all of the security guards and Gustavo reject him. Now, one of the most interesting residents within Tenpenny Tower is Susan Lancaster. She is a former slaver that worked for Paradise Falls, and of course she now lives at Tenpenny Tower. It is unknown why she left the slavers at Paradise Falls, but apparently they had a very bad falling out. Now she works as a courtesan at Tenpenny Tower and services several of the people here, including Dr. Banfield, Herbert Dashwood, and Alistair Tenpenny himself. She also has a rivalry with one of the female residents, Millicent Wellington, and she is also carrying out an affair with Millicent's husband, Edgar. And we can actually use this information to get rid of all three of them from Tenpenny Tower, which will make our lives a lot easier in helping out the ghouls. Now, in order to get the ghouls to move into Tenpenny Tower with the humans, we're going to have to convince several residents to either accept the ghouls or to force those residents to somehow leave Tenpenny Tower. Now, upstairs, I just wanted to show off this bedroom real quick. It appears to be maybe one of the owners of one of the clothing store's rooms, because there's a lot of clothing and stuff like that inside. Now, if we go up through this door here, we can go to the resident area of Tenpenny Tower, where we find the rooms of many of the more prominent residents here. Now, we will focus more on this floor later to collect some loot, but for now we want to head to the northeastern room, which is Susan Lancaster's room. And over on her desk, we can find a copy of Tales of a Jerktown Junkie Vendor, and we can also find the love letter. This is the letter that will prove of her affair with Mr. Wellington. Now, I'm not going to actually read the letter because it's just a love letter from Edgar Wellington, but I do have to say Edgar comes across as pretty darn naive, since apparently he doesn't really know about Susan's job or kind of her promiscuous nature. But very convenient for us, Miss Millicent Wellington and her husband were just down the hallway, so it's very easy just to go up to her, and, well, she's kind of a bitch, but anyways, after we go through some dialogue with her, we can, yeah, there's that line of dialogue. Anyways, we can give her the love letter that we found, and Miss Wellington is very trusting of us. She doesn't question its validity, she just accepts it at face value, and she pulls out a gun out of nowhere and proceeds to kill her husband. But because they were standing so close to each other, for me, I had this kind of funny situation play out.
I'm sure.
You broke your sacred promise.
Well, what are you talking about, dears? Is everything all right?
Let me remind you, till death do us part.
Hello? Hey there.
So after drawing and holstering her weapon several times with a security guard right next to her, she finally murders her husband, but oddly enough, nobody cares about what just happened. Then she shoots the body again for good measure, and she goes through the door. She will proceed then to run through the entire tower to find Susan.
I love that stupid man. Now that he's gone, I'm lost.
So this is just a very crazy sequence of events that is a little bit glitched, if I do say so myself. I've seen some other funny videos about this encounter on YouTube, and I just wanted to add, I actually had no clue this was possible until I was making this video, and I found out, obviously, about this possible encounter with the Wellingtons and Susan Lancaster. And during all of this, security just doesn't care, and then Miss Wellington will just leave Tenpenny Tower. However, if the gate is closed at Tenpenny Tower, well, then her pathing just screws up and she just kind of walks back and forth in this corner until the gate reopens. Just a really funny series of events. So we have to actually fast travel outside again to Tenpenny Tower, and then if we go to the security intercom, the gate will open, and now Miss Wellington will leave Tenpenny Tower and will wander the waste, where she can be killed, or you might find her at a place like outside a Megaton. Anyways, after that fun distraction, we can use the elevator to go to the top of Tenpenny Tower, and we can go talk to Mr. Tenpenny about allowing the ghouls to move into his tower. We have to pass a speech check with the security guard here, but for me, someone with 100 speech, that will not be a problem. Also worth mentioning, in Tenpenny's room, we can find a copy of Lying Congressional Style. Then out on the balcony, we can find Mr. Tenpenny, where he often spends his days, and then we can proceed to talk to him about the ghouls moving in. Now, surprisingly, he isn't too opposed to the idea as long as his residents are okay with it. And he will give us a list of 5 residents that he think might cause problems, and that we need to convince either to say yes, it's okay for the ghouls to live here, or we have to convince them to leave Tenpenny Tower. Now, there's a few ways to go about making them leave. One way is to pass a speech check, which is what I do. Another way is to just steal from their safes inside of their rooms or their shops, and this will make them think that Tenpenny Tower is no longer safe, and they will then proceed to leave. Here is the list of people we need to convince. There are 5 people on the list, however, we already got rid of 3 of them, Mr. and Mrs. Wellington and Miss Lancaster, by using that love letter. So if we go down to the shop, we can find Lydia Montenegro, and we'll just use a speech check in order to convince her that this is no longer a good place for her to live. She is very hostile to the idea of ghouls living at Tenpenny Tower, so we will just force her to leave. Now, pretty much all of the residents are initially hostile to ghouls, but many of them can be talked to, like Margaret here, and she can be convinced that the ghouls are okay. Most of the residents are at least willing to try it out at first, so hey, most of them are kind of open-minded. Same with Tiffany Chang here, who can be also convinced that hey, the ghouls might not be so bad. Speaking of Tiffany Chang, there's something very fascinating about her husband. Her husband, Irving Chang, claims to be the descendant of Chairman Chang, who was the leader of the People's Republic of China before the Great War. And he is very prideful of his assumed lineage. He refers to other people as comrade, and on his terminal, he's even planning a communist takeover of Tenpenny Tower in order to establish the Tenpenny Commune. Anyway, back to helping the ghouls, the last person we need to get rid of is Anthony Ling here. And he is extremely hostile to the idea of having ghouls live in the tower. He believes they are not even human and says that they eat their own babies. But a quick Google search will let us know that no, in the Fallout universe, ghouls cannot have babies, just like I thought, because they're mutated, they are sterile. But a quick speech check will convince Mr. Ling here to leave Tenpenny Tower, and then he will leave. Now, all of these people that do leave will make their way outside where they can die, or they might make their way to a place like Megaton. However, they'll never actually enter Megaton. Anyways, After this, we can go talk to Mr. Tenpenny and let him know that yes, his residents are now okay with the ghouls moving into his fine tower. And he says, okay, problem resolved, and he'll give you 500 caps for dealing with this situation. After this, we'll head on back down to Wellington Station, talk to Roy Phillips, and let him know the good news. And Roy Phillips will be a bit surprised that we accomplished this task of making a peaceful resolution, but he'll accept it, and then he will make his way to Tenpenny Tower along with his crew. And as compensation, he will give us the ghoul mask. The ghoul mask is this pretty cool looking mask, a little bit scary, a little bit derpy, but the nice thing about this mask is it makes all feral ghouls non-hostile to you and your companions. So even if you have a companion with you, you don't have to worry about feral ghouls while wearing this mask. And if we head back to Tenpenny Tower, we will find that the ghouls and the Tenpenny residents are living peacefully side by side. We have security guards, we have the ghouls, and the ghouls kind of just say the same dialogue as the normal residents. We can talk to Chief Gustavo, and he's a bit surprised, mentioning that he personally never would have allowed those zombies or ghouls to live with them, but hey, if Tenpenny's okay with it, then he will, discontinue his job. And if we actually talk to the residents of Tenpenny Tower, for the most part, they seem pretty happy with their new ghoul neighbors. They're talking about how they're buying a lot of food, eating. Michael Masters also seems pretty happy. Even Irving Cheng here seems very happy. Maybe he can recruit some of these ghouls for his communist revolution that he is plotting. However, while everything might seem peaceful, if we wait 3 days and come back, something is weird. All of the security guards are gone, and there's no normal residents in the courtyard. It's only ghouls. And we make our way inside. Chief Gustavo is gone, and you'll notice that all of the human residents are now gone, and that there are only ghoul residents. If we come over here and we talk to Michael Masters, he will tell us to not go to the basement because there might be a bad smell, and that Roy decided to take out the quote-unquote trash. So we can see that there is truly no peaceful resolution to what is happening at Tenpenny Tower. If we make our way to the basement, we can find a lone feral ghoul along with a lot of blood. And apparently there are now a whole bunch of bodies down here, but I didn't see any. But anyways, yes, they actually kill all of the residents, and if we confront Roy Phillips about what just transpired, he will be pretty aggressive towards the player and tell us to not mention it or not to push on it, otherwise he will turn hostile. Now, I remember as a kid when I played through this quest, I was very upset and disappointed in Roy Phillips and his crew because I went through a lot of effort in order to make a peaceful resolution. I want everybody to live side by side and happily, but obviously, peace was never an option. So ever since this, I actually usually side with the Tenpenny residents that are there in the first place. I mean, they were here first. It is their town, so they can kind of dictate the rules, even if they are kind of bigots. But I guess their bigotry had a point since there was never any peaceful resolution. So I don't really know what the message of this quest is, just always, follow your kin, I guess. I really don't know. But we're going to use some movie magic, rewind time, and restart. Now, one thing I wanted to make sure I do is I wanted to do the Sarah Lancaster and Wellington love letter affair again, just because I thought it was really amusing and really funny the first time. And this can only be done during the actual quest. If you finish the quest, this is no longer possible. So here we go, just going one more time as Mrs. Wellington goes on a shooting spree inside of Tenpenny Tower, and no one cares. After that, we're going to make our way to Warrington Train Yard. And from here, I'm going to go more in depth into Warrington Train Yard and Warrington Station because there's some good loot. So to Warrington Train Yard, in this little guardhouse, we can find an ammunition box, a first aid box with random first aid, also some radaway. Now near the back here, there's a lot of barrels of radiation, so you will pick up some rads. And then there are these little kind of catwalks that we can walk on top of. And on top of the second one, which we have to jump on, but we can find a missile launcher, some ammunition boxes with missiles, also some radaway, so some pretty good findings up here. Just kind of have to jump jump and finagle your way up here. And after that, we'll head back into the Warrington tunnels. Inside, we have this ammunition on the floor next to the skeleton, just like the first time. We'll make our way down this long tunnel. It is very linear at the very beginning, kind of just don't have any choice until eventually you reach kind of this little room. This connects us to the other part of the subway. There is some first aid and ammunition boxes in here, so make sure you kind of loot your way through to see what you can find. But really nothing that great as far as loot. But yeah, stim packs and rataway are obviously always a welcome sight. Now after this, you're going to want to go ahead and exit this little room into the next part of the subway. Continue on down. Eventually you're going to come to a T intersection, and there's going to be this skeleton and who has a rifle, some stim packs, and an ammunition box with some 5.56mm rounds. And then there are some ghouls at the end of the tunnel to our right. Now the right is a dead end, but there is this average locked door. You're going to want to pick this door in order to find a lot of medical supplies, also one ammunition box, so not half bad if I do say so myself. Now within the tunnel section itself, this is probably the best loot in the entire section just because of all of the first aid. Now, in the actual Warrington station, there are some skill books and stuff, which we'll show later. Here is where that Feral Ghoul Reaver might spawn if you have Broken Steel installed. Obviously, this would be a very unwelcome sight for a low level, because these guys have a fuck ton of health. Thankfully, I had dog meat with me in order to kind of be my bullet sponge. But yeah, that Reaver is really difficult, and he only gave me 2 bobby pins. But actually, bobby pins in Fallout 3 are a bit more rare than in Fallout 4 or Fallout New Vegas, so hey, I'll take them. After that, just kind of make your way through the rest of the subway. Eventually, there's a downstairs area, and we can find some more first aid boxes, which had 5 total stim packs for me, which is pretty damn good. After that, we can actually enter the actual station area. Again, we will be talking with Michael Masters. Now, I was trying to get Michael Masters to attack me, but for whatever reason, he wouldn't, because if they attack you first, then you won't lose any karma. You could also lure the ghouls, the feral ghouls, to them, and they actually will attack the feral ghouls, despite the fact that the feral ghouls won't attack them initially. I guess they're fighting them because they're fighting you, question mark? But anyways, after this, if we go back to where Roy Phillips is, there is a Nuka-Cola bottle between these metal boxes. We will then talk to Roy Phillips, and I was able to get Roy Phillips to turn hostile to me, but even once I killed him, I still lost karma. So I don't really know how you could do this without losing karma. Perhaps I should have let him physically shoot me first. But it really didn't matter all that much, because even after killing all of these people and losing karma, I still had very good karma rating. So no harm, no foul. After that, at the back of the room, we have some ammunition boxes. Everything in here is considered stealing, so keep that in mind. And in this box, we have a copy of Pugilism Illustrated. Not half bad. Then we have to kill the last one here, Michael Myers. Here I used a different strategy. I just kind of got his health down a little bit, and I let Dogmeat do the rest of the dirty work, and I didn't lose any karma for killing Michael, even though Michael to me is like the nicest one out of the bunch. But hey, anyways, after this, head down this kind of like service tunnel, and eventually you're going to come into this small room. You're going to want to open this door to a closet with this red light. I got a little confused in here because I couldn't really see it. But up on this shelf, on the shelf by the door, there's a copy of Dean's Electronics, so make sure you pick up that bad boy. Also some railroad spikes and some ammunition. After this, if we head back towards where the emergency exit to Tenpenny Tower is, we can find a big book of science. This one is not considered stealing, so I guess it's not within the ghoul's possession. But that pretty much sums up all of the loot within Warrington Station. After that, we can leave Warrington Station, and we're going to come out over here by these couple of buildings, maybe an old shopping center in Warrington during the pre-war era. I had a fight between a sentry bot and a rad scorpion over here. Also, there was a protectron that decided to join the fight. So I took out the sentry bot with some missiles, and Dogmeat was just kind of like looking at him. Thanks a lot, Dogmeat, there. But anyways, after taking them out, one of the shops is kind of still open. This shop right here, called Lucky's, has a scavenger inside of it who we can trade with. And there are a few items of note in this shop. One is behind the register. We can find another copy of Pugilum Illustrated, which is pretty good. Also over here we can find a bottle of Nuka-Cola Quantum. However, it is considered stealing, so you're going to want to hide and then take the Nuka-Cola Quantum. Obviously, though, you will lose karma, so it's up to you. And also we can find a very small garden gnome. I don't know if you're interested in that, but hey, you could put it in your house to decorate on this shelf here, kind of towards the back of the shop. But again, it is considered stealing, so make sure you are hidden before you take it. Otherwise, the scavenger will attack you. The scavenger can obviously fix your weapons. He only has 12 repair skill, though, and we can obviously trade with him as well. As I left, I was ambushed by these Talon Company mercs. So I don't know if this is a scripted event. I couldn't find anything about it or if it was just random, but do be careful as you exit. Then if we head back to Tenpenny Tower and talk to Chief Gustavo, we can tell him the good news that Roy Phillips and his crew are dead, and that those ghouls will no longer be an issue for the residents of Tenpenny Tower. He will reward us with 700 caps. The worst thing about this ending, in my opinion, is we cannot acquire the ghoul mask. However, ghouls are, for the most part, pretty easy to kill, besides feral ghoul reavers. Those guys are fucking terrible. But other ghouls are simple enough, so it's not too big of a loss. Also, just kind of get some XP. And from here, we'll take a look around Tenpenny Tower. Now, on the top floor, like the penthouse floor, there is a suite up here, which you can use as player housing if you side with Mr. Burke and you destroy Megaton, which is very evil and very sad indeed, and something I don't really want to do, so I will never live in Tenpenny Tower. But besides that, we also have the Chang's bedroom up here. I don't know why the Changs live up here or how they got that bedroom, but yeah, pretty interesting they live up here, considering that Mr. Chang wants to overthrow Tenpenny and establish a communist utopia within the tower. Now, if we head on downstairs, I wanted to just quickly show off Dr. Banfield, who's this old doctor that can obviously heal us. However, I was unable to trade with him, which I thought was kind of interesting, so I could not buy medical supplies from him. Also worth mentioning is Herbert Daring Dashwood is one of the residents of Tenpenny Tower. Now, obviously, Herbert Daring Dashwood is the star of Galaxy News Radio's radio drama about, well, his life and his adventures. He was a wasteland adventurer, and a very accomplished adventurer, if I do say so myself. Now, interestingly, he did travel with his ghoul sidekick, a 200-year-old ghoul named Argyle. So it would seem to me that Herbert would be perfectly fine with ghouls, and I'm surprised he doesn't play a larger role during the Tenpenny quest, because I'm sure that he does not have any ill will towards ghouls, since his best friend was in fact a ghoul. And inside of his bedroom, as you can see here, he has various treasures from around the Capital Wasteland. Also, he has a whole bunch of baseball equipment over on this shelf, which I just thought was really cool. Then, as we come into this room, this is obviously the Wellington's room, where Mr. Wellington's body is just lying in the chair. I don't know why that made me laugh so much, but anyways, really not a whole lot inside of this room. There is an average locked safe, which we can pick, but there was really nothing of interest inside of it, so I was like, don't even bother. After that, if we head down the hallway here, next kind of to Sarah Lancaster's room, there is a red tricycle. This red tricycle is a reference to the movie The Shining, where Danny is riding his tricycle and encounters the two little girls. One of the most famous scenes in cinema and definitely in horror. And then in the bedroom to the southeast, we have an alcoholic's room, because there is alcohol everywhere. This room kind of cracks me up. There are these like little pedestals with bottles of alcohol on them. The bookshelves and everything are just filled with alcohol. So if you ever need a drink or you want some, alcohol, this is definitely the place to come get some. Of course, it would be considered stealing. Over here on this pedestal, I thought it was really funny because we have a box of sugar bombs and a bottle of whiskey. Also worth noting, the one item of note in here is we have a rare, very large bottle of vodka. This is one of the only ones like this in Fallout, so I decided to go ahead and just take it and to put it in my house as a display item since it is rare. After that, we can go outside, and this is, of course, where Mr. Tenpenny spends most of his days. Sometimes, though, of course, when he goes to sleep and stuff, he'll actually go inside of his room. From up here, behind Lucky's, there is a nuclear crater, or what many Fallout fans assume is a nuclear crater. Obviously, then, there was a nuclear explosion close to Tenpenny Tower, so Tenpenny Tower is pretty damn resilient. And, of course, from up here, we can get some exceptional views of the Capital Wasteland. And there you guys have it, Tenpenny Tower. I had a lot of fun making this video, exploring Tenpenny Tower, exploring some of its characters, and of course, exploring the nearby Warrington. Now, if you've watched this long, thank you so much, and I am curious, what do you guys do at Tenpenny Tower? Do you side with the residents, or do you side with Roy Phillips and his crew? Let me know in the comments section below. And before you leave, here are some interesting facts about Tenpenny Tower. Obviously, Tenpenny Tower only appears in Fallout 3. However, in Fallout New Vegas, you can often find the picture of Tenpenny Tower throughout the world. Some examples include the Tops Casino and the RepCon test site. So be on the lookout and you too might see Tenpenny Tower. And the last thing, Bethesda's developers confirmed that Tenpenny Tower was slightly inspired by Fiddler's Green, which is a skyscraper in George Romero's Land of the Dead. And this is why the residents of Tenpenny Tower refer to ghouls as zombies. And of course, before we end this video, let's do some shenanigans by killing Mr. Tenpenny and then falling off of Tenpenny Tower because you're stuck on the ledge here, and then you land right in front of the security guard like so. Now, something I did learn that I never realized before is you can use VATS while in mid-air. I was able to launch this mini nuke at that security guard while I was plunging to my death. I sent him flying and then my body crumbled into the ground. And yeah, I just thought that was freaking awesome. And thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have any recommendations or ideas for future videos, future locations, please post them in the comments section below. And I'll leave you with this. I fired a mini nuke directly at Mr. Tenpenny, and he survived. Maybe he is more powerful than we thought. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out what is low-key one of my favorite locations in all of Fallout 3, Wilhelm's Wharf. Now this is a very small kind of minor location within the game. It's just a small encampment along the banks of the Potomac River. It's kind of in the central area of the map, but I have a lot of very fond memories of this location. So let's go ahead and jump on into it. And here you can see the location on the world map. It's just northeast of Grey Ditch and southeast of the Super Duper Mart. One reason I love this little wharf is because it feels so peaceful in an otherwise violent and scary world. It's in the middle of the map, near Washington, D.C., near all this destruction, but we can find a very lovely old lady amidst all of the destruction.
Clerks ain't got you yet, I see. You need some trading? My boys are hunting lurks. Finest meat you could get, but he don't move around in your stomach like mole rat does. Right dangerous, those things. Just as soon take your head off as look at you. Watch yourself out here. They're all over. Some fellas came out here a while ago that said they was looking for some do-gooder that came out from one of them vaults. I told them I ain't seen nobody like that and sent them on their way. They might still be around here, though, if you think you can help them.
Grandma Sparkle here is just an old lady that protects this small little wharf from raiders and super mutants because she is a skilled shot with a hunting rifle. Kind of shows what it takes to survive in this harsh world. Her two sons are hunters of Mirelurks, and she will sell the player Mirelurk meat along with various other meats. Inside of her house, it is considered trespassing to go in, and despite the bed not being owned by her for whatever reason, we cannot sleep in it because we're trespassing. Also on the counter, we can find her hunting rifle and some ammunition. But I really like this place because when I played this game a long time ago, when I was probably too young to be playing such a game, I used to come here to just relax, to take in the world, and to have peaceful moments within Fallout 3. Fallout 3 is otherwise a kind of scary, terrifying, and violent game that is always moving. Here it just feels like time stops, it feels like a simple life, and I just really enjoy this small little place. Truthfully, there's not a whole lot at this location, but this location just demonstrates why I love Fallout 3, and I'm really glad I started making this series because I started to develop a negative image of Fallout 3 just because of some of the online banter, but now having replayed a lot of Fallout 3, I have actually really begun to appreciate what this game is, what this game does, and how amazing of a world Bethesda did craft within this game. And one last thing I wanted to mention, is after you beat the game, if you have broken steel installed, there is a side quest related to this place called Protecting the Waterway. In this quest, a raider gang led by Split Jack are attacking the water caravans en route to the Aqua Pura, and they have taken Grandma Sparkle hostage. And during this quest, you have to be very careful, because if you disobey Split Jack, he will kill Grandma Sparkle, which is very sad. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this short video of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. If you have any recommendations for future ideas or future locations, please post them in the comment section below. And as always, until next time. I love Halo. Growing up, I remember going to my friends' and cousins' houses to play Halo 2. It was an awesome game, shooting aliens, saving the planet, having these awesome, amazing, incredible environments to explore, and after some convincing, I convinced my parents to buy me an Xbox 360 and Halo for my birthday. It was 2007, and I was turning 11, just after Christmas. My parents got me an Xbox 360, while my grandfather purchased Halo 3. And out of all of my birthdays, it is actually one of the ones I remember the best. Halo 3 remains probably my favorite game ever made. But for a long time, Halo 3 was my only game. You see, I couldn't play games rated M. Halo was okay since it was about killing aliens. But on Xbox Live, I noticed something. A lot of my friends were playing Fallout 3. What was that? I thought to myself. I honestly had no idea. I mainly played Nintendo games before Xbox, and had very little exposure to Microsoft or PC. I asked my friend, and he was like, oh, it's a zombie apocalypse game, and you kill zombies and stuff, and it's cool. I mean, we were stupid kids. Anyway, I convinced my mom to let me buy Fallout 3. I mean, after all, it was just a zombies game. How bad could it be? So I exchanged my Game Boy SP and other Game Boy games at GameStop or EB Games or whatever the fuck it's called. I mean, surely those Game Boy games will never be worth anything again. I mean, anyways, I exchanged them for probably pennies and purchased Fallout 3. I went home, I put that sucker in the Xbox 360, and was quickly sucked into an insane world that, well, doesn't even have zombies. Well, depending on who you ask.
Zombies or
At the very beginning of the game, I let a mother die, killed my girlfriend's father, Daddy! And began my journey into the wasteland. Being a dumb kid, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't discover Megaton until about halfway through the game, and instead I wandered right into Springvale. I found this robot thing and killed it promptly. I found silver and thought it was weird, and then I found this school. A nice, peaceful elementary school. A place where children go to learn, to be educated, to make friends, to socialize, to play sports. What could be? Oh my god. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and today we're going to be looking at Springvale along with Springvale School or Springvale Elementary School. Now Springvale kind of has a special place in my heart because it was my true first real experience with Fallout and the Wasteland. Of course, you have all the stuff going on in Vault 101 at the very beginning of the game, but as soon as I've left Vault 101, this is where I went, and I was absolutely horrified. So let's jump on into Springvale. Now, Springvale is obviously right next to Vault 101, just north of Megaton, and we're also going to be checking out the area surrounding it as there is a lot of unmarked areas. So we are just now leaving Vault 101 here. Obviously, I just went to Vault 101 to approach Springvale from. I'm approaching on the cliffs because after completing the Waters of Life quest, there may or may not be an Enclave outpost here, or at least the very beginnings of an Enclave outpost. We can find a vertibird which has landed and some Enclave soldiers. One mini nuke though will help to neutralize the Enclave threat. Big hit there. And after that we can go over to the highway, which is just west of Vault 101, and we can find some raiders and dog meats already, well, traumatizing the raiders. For the most part though, this was actually a pretty simple fight. Just take out the raiders. Obviously though, I'm a higher level now. If you came here right out of Vault 101, it might prove to be a bit challenging. This raider just kind of stood still after I shot out her sniper rifle and let me kill her, so very kind of her. After that, I found about 3 raiders that were just meleeing, so I just kind of ran backwards, which could be dangerous since we're at an elevated area, so do be careful. But just below the highway on the west side, we can find some more enclaves. So using a missile launcher from above, I was able to make quick work of these guys. So not too bad. They also had a Deathclaw over off in the distance there, and they were fighting the Deathclaw, as you can see right there. I tried to shoot a missile at him, but I don't know if it actually did anything. And by the time I got down there, the Deathclaw was dead or was gone. I don't know what happened to him, but thank you very much, Enclave, for taking out that threat. Further down the highway, we can find these shacks, but there's really nothing in them as far as loot. And at the very end of the highway, or at least before it collapsed, we can find this bus just hanging off the edge. But unfortunately, we cannot get in the bus, unlike in Fallout 4. Most of the buses are accessible. Fallout 3, they have to be, like, destroyed or cut in half, like the bus I just jumped on top of. But there's really no loot here, and the highway just collapsed into the river. Now, as we come up towards the farm where the Enclave were, found another Enclave soldier, so we killed him. Again, I have no clue where that Deathclaw went. I couldn't find his body or anything. Inside of the house, there is, well, a bed frame, and really not much else. Eventually, this Yaoguai decided to attack me in Dogmeat, but yeah, not much of a match for either of us. Then we can just loot the dead Enclave. Also, the Enclave has some of these kind of crates, so you can see what you find in them. A lot of the times they have microfusion cells, which are good for me, because I like using the laser rifle. And then we can loot that other Enclave soldier that we blew up with missiles. Going back, there was still an Enclave officer alive, so me and Dogmeat took him back. Then something really weird happened. We had an Enclave soldier being resurrected, and for some reason he didn't wear, and then I shot Dogmeat, but for some reason he wasn't wearing his power armor. I'm pretty sure I killed him with a mini nuke, but for some reason he was revived without his power armor. When we looted his body, he had power armor. So I don't know if this is because I died and respawned and I reset the area a little bit or something, but anyways, I just thought it was a really funny encounter. Then next to the Enclave outpost, or the one that's being set up, we can find these 2 houses on top of a hill overlooking Springvale. And then we can jump down into Springvale, and we have this small ranch-style house, and inside of this house is where we will find Silver. Silver is a former Megaton resident and escort. She worked for Colin Moriarty, and she is tied to the quest 300 Pieces of Silver, where we have to collect a debt for Moriarty from Silver. So obviously working for Moriarty seems to be pretty bad, since she would rather live out here next to a gang of raiders in an Enclave outpost than in the safety of Megaton's walls. Now over here we can find a red rocket stopping area where they would, refuel coolant for the nuclear powered cars. Obviously, it's just kind of bare bones, but it is pretty iconic, at least for me, because I remember this is one of the first sights I ever saw in Fallout 3, along with this iBot that I promptly murdered once again. Now, over here we have some suitcases. Perhaps this family was trying to leave when the nukes went off. Inside of their mailbox, we can find a letter which reads, "Dear safety-conscious citizen, we are writing to inform you that your family was not selected for inclusion in your chosen Vault-Tec facility. Your deposit has been retained, and your application added to a waiting list for your preferred vault. In the interest of your family's security in the event of a minor nuclear event, please consider relocating to one of these areas, where Vault-Tec facilities are available without a waiting list. For a full list of Vault-Tec facilities with available accommodations in exciting locales such as Oklahoma and newly annexed Canada, contact your local Vault-Tec representative. Vault-Tec wishes you and your family the best of luck in the uncertain future. Best regards, Vault-Tec, Public Relations Department, Washington, D.C." Now, you can actually find these letters scattered around the Capital Wasteland, but I wanted to read it in this episode because there's another Vault-Tec letter found at a different house here in Springvale that is of interest. Now, over here we have the Springvale playground. There is a milk bottle just laying here, a tricycle. I always love these Fallout playgrounds. They just add an element of realism to the world. Inside of this house, there is a safe that I completely missed. So, kind of a failing otter there. But anyways, there is a safe with random loot inside of it, but nothing like great or exceptional. Now, over here in this house, you can look inside this mailbox, kind of the middle house here on the right side or on the north side, and we can find a copy of Pugilism Illustrated inside of the mailbox. Inside of this house, there is a footlocker with leather armor, but really not a whole lot else. There's also a mailbox which we can loot that is fallen over. but there was really nothing inside of it for me besides a Nuka-Cola. But hey, Nuka-Cola is always good. Then at the end house of the street here, there's nothing inside. We also have a mailbox with random chems and some frag grenades, so not bad, not bad. Now, assuming you stumbled down into Springvale at the very beginning of the game, you would have some decent loot like the leather armor and some chems and stuff to help you in your playthrough. Now, as we make our way further into Springvale towards the school, we have a locked cabinet that had some bobby pins inside of it, pretty good. And over in this house, we have another mailbox with a letter from Vault-Tec. This letter is very interesting, and it reads, "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Gomez, congratulations on your family's recent inclusion in the Vault 101 community. You will find outlined in your application materials a full review of rules and procedures related to preparing for shelter in a Vault-Tec facility, but we will outline a few key points here. Vault-Tec provides all clothing, bedding, and accommodations for residents. Personal belongings must be reviewed and approved of by an authorized Vault-Tec hermetics technician before such belongings can be delivered to your reserved quarters within the vault. In the event of an emergency entrance to the vault, no personal belongings will be permitted beyond the main door of the facility. All vault residents must attend an orientation seminar. If you do not attend such a seminar as part of the application process, you must make an appointment with your Vault-Tec representative. In the event of a vault activation, whether actual or drill, Vault-Tec will sound a siren audible in the immediate vicinity of the vault facility entrance, and residents will be contacted via holo message at the phone number provided in their resident profile records. Please report promptly to Vault 101 to await minutes and processing upon such a notification. Vault-Tec looks forward to having you and your family as valued residents. Be sure to present this letter to your Vault-Tec representative to receive your special commemorative Vault Boy bobblehead toy. Sincerely, Vault-Tec Department of Public Relations, Washington, D.C. So obviously the Mr. and Mrs. Gomez here are the ancestors of the Gomez family within Vault 101. Obviously there is Herman Gomez, who is married to Pepper Gomez, and their son, Freddie Gomez. So this family is obviously very prominent, as Gomez believes that the lone wanderer's father is innocent, and he kind of helps us escape the vault during the quest Escape. Now, we don't know if this house actually belonged to the Gomez family because this letter can also be found near Tenpenny Tower in a ruined house. However, I'm going to assume they lived here in Springvale just because of its proximity to Vault 101. But that pretty much covers the neighborhood and all of the houses. The next thing of interest is Springvale Elementary School, otherwise known as just Springvale School. Now, this school is relatively large, and it's maybe one of the first structures you will encounter in your playthrough of Fallout 3. Now, just behind the school, we can find this locked gate and some radioactive barrels underneath an electrical pole, and we can also find a first aid kit and a hunting rifle, which might be a good find at the very beginning of the game. Now, there will be some raiders in this collapsed section of the school. Perhaps this section collapsed because of a nuclear explosion. Additionally, the raiders are using explosives underneath the school, which we'll get more into later, that could have had an impact on this part. But as we come into this part of the building, we'll see that it's all open air and that you can kind of navigate without actually entering the school. On the bottom level, there are a lot of lockers, but there is nothing of note as far as loot. Not even some bottle caps, just a few lockers with some junk. If we just cross the bridge, we can find a coffee maker and some coffee mugs. Muggy would be very satisfied. But on the second floor, there is really not much. There are two staircases in the outside portion, both of which just take us to the second floor, but there's no loot. This just provides us access to the windows and a good place to kind of scout out and to shoot, well, if you had any enemies. As we enter, we will find a cage filled with the bodies of children, which is really disturbing. And also above the cage is a Nuka-Cola Quantum, but we'll have to go upstairs to the second floor in order to retrieve it. As we make our way inside, you're going to find a lot of raiders. Now, when I was a kid, this is one of the first places I ever went, and I was quite shocked at what this game was. Again, I had no clue what I was playing when I first played this game. I just knew like it was post-apocalypse, and yeah, I found these very disturbing things, and I was like, wow, this is interesting. So actually, my entire life, I was terrified of Springvale School. It's really not that scary compared to other Fallout places, but as a kid, and this being your first experience in Fallout, it is kind of terrifying. There's a lot of blood everywhere, there's mutilated bodies everywhere, there's skeletons, children's skeletons in cages, who knows what the fuck was going on here. In the kitchen, we can find a stim pack next to a dead mole rat, and over here we can find some rat away next to a whole bunch of beers. Now, on the east side of the school, we can find some ABCs on the wall. In the classroom across from there, you're going to find a Raider, and also we can find sheet music in that overturned desk. I'll show it right here. There's the sheet music just hiding out behind the desk. Again, this is in the eastern part of the school, opposite of the ABCs. Just outside, we can find a cage with a skeleton inside, and then we just are back at the entrance. The school can be a little bit confusing to explore, but for the most part, it does make sense. Now, something to note as we make our way to the second floor, the cardinal directions within this facility are kind of messed up. I entered from the east, like the east entrance, but as soon as I popped inside, I was facing north. So for some reason, it's rotated the wrong way, but hey, who cares? On the second floor, you'll find a Raider that has a library key. We can use this key to unlock this door here. And here we can find a Raider just kind of like walking into a wall. But I'm pretty sure that is actually the leader of this gang, because we can find this terminal that is next to a copy of Duck and Cover that has various log entries that are of interest. The first one reads, Bopo died like a bitch. He didn't even have half a bad idea setting up here. We had a good thing going. Picked off some caravans and traders on their way into Megaton. He was stupid to try and raid the town. Dumbass deserved the bullet Sims put in his head. Anyway, there's sweeter water to be had here. That damn vault's what we should be trying to get into, not that rag-ass town. If we can get in there, ain't none of us going to want again for the rest of our lives. And then log entry number 2 reads, some of the scabs got tired of digging the tunnel and started using mines to get into the caves. Not a half bad idea. The explosions damn near knocked the building apart. We got a new window or two on the side of the building, haha. I'm going to have some of the boys knock over a caravan for more explosives, but we'll have to use fewer in the blast or some assholes from Megaton will come looking. And the final entry reads, hit a goddamn hive of ants in the tunnel. Bastards ate 7 of our best diggers before we could lock off the way in. Need to find some way to poison them so we can keep digging and blast into that vault. If we don't get there soon, I think I'm going to end up like Bopo, except it won't be the sheriff popping me. It's going to be my own men. So yes, these raiders are trying to bomb and mine their way into Vault 101. They want to get inside the vault for obvious reasons to escape the wasteland, and only God knows what would happen if they actually accomplished that. But thankfully there was an army of ants. Additionally, I don't know how easy it is actually to get into a vault, even though this section is already underground. If they could just simply blast their way into it, or if the vault is too resilient. I don't know, let me know in the comments section below. But after that, we can go loot the leader, and we can find a log on him, but it's actually just log number 3 from the terminal in the form of a holotape, so don't really know the point. Behind us, we can find some ammunition boxes, one of which has an easy lock, so we can just pick it. The other boxes are fine, though, not locked, so just take all the ammunition that you can carry. After that, we'll head to the northeast part of the school and go all the way down to the basement. There's this random bedroom here, but there's nothing inside. But we'll go all the way down to the basement where the mine is and the ants are. So obviously we have to find the mine first, and we can use the key that we took off the Raider in the library area. Now, there will be some raiders down here, and at first it just looks like a normal school, right? There's obviously not a mine, or it's been locked away because of the ants. So we'll just make our way through, killing the raiders. Really, as far as loot, there is not a whole lot down here, at least until we get to the mine. Now, it is worth mentioning that there are 3 entrances into the bottom section of the school. This double door is from the Capital Wasteland and the collapsed portion of the school. And then there's 2 other entrances from inside the school itself. But eventually you're going to find a locked door, which is at the end of this hallway to the left, and this key will open the door, and then we can find the actual mine. We can see that the raiders have been doing quite a lot of work. They are pretty impressive, I do have to say, and it does make me wonder if they could actually break into Vault 101. At the intersection, go left, right is just a dead end, and there's going to be a plethora of giant soldier ants, which we have to fight. Eventually, we're going to come to this large room, and there's kind of like an ant tunnel over here to the east, but, you know, we can't obviously go in there. And then over here to the north, we can find a bunch of ant eggs, some stim packs, some ammunition, some chems on one of the Wastelanders, and then underneath this Wastelander is a Chinese special ops training manual, which will increase our sneak pretty good. But as you come into this room, a fuck ton of soldier ants will spawn, and then I decided to play Ring Around the Rosie with them. Dogmeat actually kind of got stuck in the ant hole over there that I showed earlier on the eastern part, so he was just fighting the ants from inside their own home. What a legend. But I don't know how close the raiders were actually to getting to Vault 101, or if they could even break in, but it is interesting to think that if it wasn't for some giant soldier ants, perhaps the story of Fallout 3 never would have happened, because the raiders would have broke into Vault 101, and, well, they probably would have killed everyone or enslaved them or, done some absolutely terrible things. Now, just real quick, back up on the second story. Here is me getting that Nuka-Cola Quantum with all of the mutilated bodies next to it. But yeah, make sure you get that Nuka-Cola Quantum. But that pretty much sums up the interior of this school. Now, as we make our way back outside, we can find this large baseball field to the southwest, just behind the school. There was a boat fly hanging out here, but I killed it. And, boat flies are not very threatening in game. And then if we go towards the north, we can find our kind of last building of Springvale, this kind of old, decrepit concrete structure. Don't know what function or purpose this building had, but there is now a small enclave outpost next to it. And judging by the state of the building, it may have been important for something. Over here, it seems like we have some kind of maybe water treatment or just industrial facilities kind of in the water here. This is the Potomac River, of course. And then the building is irradiated, so it appears that there was some kind of large explosion or something in here. I don't know if it was actually a nuclear explosion. I doubt it, just because it doesn't look like enough damage, but perhaps that was targeted or there was some kind of incident after the Great War. And then over here we have an Enclave research terminal, which has information about Mirelurks and the Great American Cockroach, also known as the Radroach, or what they believe is now a Radroach. And there's also some Enclave crates with random loot and ammunition inside, so make sure you take a look. Then after that, I decided to head over here to this barn. Now, I actually covered this barn in one of my first videos about the Super Duper Mart. There is a Chinese Special Ops training manual in here. However, when I visited this location before, there was no Enclave outpost. Now there is a very large Enclave outpost, and they were kicking my ass. These Hellfire troopers are frackin' annoying. But yeah, we were just using missiles, and we were able to take them out eventually. But man, this Hellfire soldier was so freaking tough to kill. Had a lot of health, and his fire, well, it just destroys your HP. But after that, we can go take a look around the Enclave outpost. There are, of course, these Enclave crates, and there's also a large first aid box with healing items and chems and stuff, so that's really good. There's a mailbox, but nothing in the mailbox, and then we have some of these pre-war cars. There's also an Enclave scientist at this facility, which is kind of rare, and he was just cowering away. I was like, who's shooting me? And I'm an idiot because they were behind me. But I went down and I just killed the scientist and the turret. Kind of mean maybe to kill the scientist, but he drops a finger, so that means he's evil karma, the bastard. And there's another research terminal about boat flies, Brahmin, and giant ants. This research is kind of interesting, and I'm sure it would be helpful for people. Then on this bookshelf is where you can find the Chinese Special Ops training manual, if you haven't already picked it up, like I have. And there you guys have it. Springvale. And one last thing I wanted to mention, while there is no Springvale town in real life, in Northern Virginia, in the approximately same location as Springvale in Fallout 3, there is Springvale Road, which likely inspired the name of this town in Fallout 3. So pretty cool, and just more real world references. And there you guys have it, Springvale. I'm sure Springvale is a place that many players had their first experiences in Fallout 3, and perhaps the entire Fallout franchise. So I'm interested to know, what is your experience in Springvale? Did you go straight to Megaton? Did you go straight to Springvale? Or did you go somewhere else entirely? Let us know in the comments section below. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I had a lot of fun exploring this video. I learned a lot about Springvale Elementary. I actually never knew about the Vault 101 expedition going on in there, so I thought that was really interesting. That was a place I always avoided because of my memories as a child. So this video was kind of special for me because I was able to have some nostalgic feelings about Springvale and just my first experiences in Fallout 3. If you guys have any recommendations or ideas for future videos or future locations, please post them in the comments section below. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Here we'll be checking out the Tepid Sewers, which is a location in Fallout 3 many of you might be familiar with because it's a part of the quest, the Wasteland Survival Guide. Very early on in that quest, Moira Brown will send us here in order to kill mole rats, or not initially kill, but to attack mole rats with her mole rat repellent stick. However, her repellent stick doesn't really work, as we will see in this video. So obviously this location features a plethora of mole rats along with a gang of raiders. So let's waste no more time and let's check out Tepid Sewers. Now Tepid Sewers is located just east of Wilhelm's Wharf and just east of the Anchorage War Memorial, kind of right in the middle of Washington, D.C. Now as we approach inside, we will immediately find a pack of mole rats to our right, in which case we can use our repellent stick in order to get rid of them. Now initially the repellent stick is supposed to just kind of deter or make them run away, but instead their fucking heads blow off. So, you know, not really how it's supposed to work, but it actually is pretty effective, at least against mole rats, because it, well, kills them pretty easily. Not that mole rats are a particularly threatening animal within Fallout. But after you hit a few mole rats with the repellent stick, you will complete the quest's main objective. Now there is a side objective, and you just have to hit more mole rats with the stick. Pretty easy. Now there is a turret here which we can hack, which will make our lives a lot easier when fighting these raiders. Also be aware there is a gas leak down here, so if you use any kind of like traditional weapon or a laser weapon, it will ignite a fire like you saw. But there will be a lot of mole rats down here and also some raiders, so just be on the lookout. You should have no problem completing the quest's optional objective down here in the sewers. As you make your way through, you might find some mole rats that are already dead. We can assume they were killed by the raiders. Now eventually it opens up into this train tunnel, and you're going to have to fight Rock Salt, who appears to be the leader of this gang of raiders. Now there is a plethora of mines in here, so do be careful, but it also means that we can get some easy XP and easy money if you just sell them. Then on Rock Salt we can find his key. Definitely make sure you take that because it can get you some good loot later on. Now in the train tunnel, you're going to find this kind of like side area where there'll be some raiders hanging out. You're going to find this room with what appears to be some kind of large boiler, and kind of tucked away behind it is a copy of Dean's Electronics. This is really well hidden. It took me a little bit to figure out exactly where it was, but yeah, once it's there, it's there. Then inside of this bedroom area, there is a safe on the floor. It's to my left there when I was looting. I completely missed the safe, but guess what? You don't have to, because now you know it's in there. Then, as we make our way up, just make sure you disarm these mines, don't get yourself killed like I almost did, and just take them with you for some extra money. And eventually we can come up here to the northern end of the train tunnel ends, and we can head back into the Tepid Sewers, where we will find more mole rats. So there you go, more mole rats for the Wasteland Survival Guide. Now inside of this room where the mole rats and raiders are fighting one another is where we can find rock salts, like little safe or vault, whatever you want to call it. Now we can either use the key or hack the terminal. I went ahead and hacked the terminal because I actually really enjoy hacking in Fallout, and also it's free XP. Inside of this room, in this kind of wooden crate here that has burned books, at the very bottom, which you have to kind of take out the burned books, we can find a pre-war book, so pretty good find. And then also we can just find Rock Salt's like little stash here. He has some grenades, and also this personal footlocker with ammunition, some bottle caps, and a power fist. So there you go. Then as we make our way further through, we will find more and more mole rats, and eventually we'll find this kind of workbench and a bottle cap mine underneath it, so make sure you take that. And then continuing our way through, we'll just find some kind of junk and random loot, and eventually it opens up into this train station, and now we can leave to Georgetown West, where I was, ambushed, obviously, by a group of Talon Company mercs. When are these bastards not ambushing me? Anyways, I went ahead and killed all of them. They also got into a fight with some super mutants, and outside of the station here of Georgetown West, we can find this large kind of destroyed building that has some very interesting loot inside of it. Of course, there are normally super mutants in here. Thankfully, a lot of the super mutants died fighting the Talon Company, which made my life a lot easier. And then up here on the second floor of this decrepit building, we can find some ammunition boxes, some chems such as Psycho, also a copy of Grognak the Barbarian, a Stealth Boy, and a ton of baseballs. That's pretty good for the rocket launcher, but a ton of baseballs. I just thought that was really cool. Don't know why. I like baseballs, so there it is. Now, going back to Moira Brown, we will have some interesting dialogue options, especially if you've completed the optional objective, which is to test it out on more mole rats. She will actually let you keep the repellent stick, so you can use it to kill mole rats, even though mole rats aren't very difficult, but something you can add to your collection. If you don't complete the optional objective, don't worry, because you can actually still buy the repellent stick from her. It'll be in her inventory. You can just buy it from her. And if you have a high enough intelligence or endurance, you will have some unique dialogue options when talking to Moira. As you can see there, I used my intelligence to kind of guess maybe what went wrong with the repellent stick, because it didn't work as intended. She also talks about maybe mole rats could be domesticated. Of course, there are instances of mole rats being domesticated in Fallout 3 and in Fallout New Vegas. So, you know, she is on to something, even if she doesn't realize it yet. And there you have it, the Tepid Sewers. Of course, this is a very important location for the Wasteland Survival Guide. As you level up in Fallout 3, it becomes increasingly difficult to find mole rats because the game starts spawning more difficult enemies. So this location always provides you with a good source of mole rats, regardless of your level. If you're a high level, this location is really easy, and if you're a low level, it's very approachable. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have any recommendations or ideas for future videos, future locations in Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, or Fallout 4, please let me know in the comment section below. And as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out Northwest Seneca Station, along with some of the surrounding area. Now, this is a location I have very little, next to no memory of, but this location is actually pretty cool. There's a lot going on here, there's some kind of cool characters, and it is attached to a much larger quest, but we're going to be saving that for another day. So for now, let's just go ahead and check out some of the area, some of the characters, and see what loot we can find. Now, Northwest Seneca Station is located just north of Arefu and south of Paradise Falls, as you can see here on the Pip-Boy. Now, as you approach for the first time, you're just going to find a couple of buildings, and then a sign that says Northwest Seneca Station. So obviously this was probably a major station during the pre-war era. Now, there is this grocery store that we can enter, and there's going to be some rad roaches, so just take care of them. You know, pretty easy to kill for the most part. And there was a radio I wanted to turn off to avoid any kind of copyright. There's a first aid box with random first aid supplies. And then underneath the register, we can find 2 boxes of sugar bombs. There's also a safe, which we can unlock using lockpick or science. Now, throughout your playthrough of Fallout 3, it might be wise to collect boxes of sugar bombs for this location. Of course, if you're not interested in doing drugs, then you don't have to collect sugar bombs. But there is something cool going on here. Now, for now, though, we'll just kind of go throughout the rest of the grocery store. There really isn't a whole lot else, though, besides what we just talked about, besides dog meat getting in my way. There's a refrigerator with some Nuka-Colas and stuff, but nothing that special. As I left the grocery store, I got attacked by these Talon Company mercs, so do be careful, but me and dog meat were able to take care of them fairly easily. However, behind me, there started just being crazy explosions and stuff. I suspect somebody threw a frag grenade, and it blew up that motorcycle and kind of caused some chaos. Now, one thing I did want to point out on these station benches, we do have a map of the train system, which I just thought was really cool attention to detail. There's also one on that sign there. Now, if we head on into the actual metro, we will be greeted by some mole rats if you go right. However, we'll go back to them later. For now, we're just going to go straight, and we're going to find these 2 flaming barrels and a door. And inside, we will find Murphy. And Murphy is a friendly ghoul doctor who is trying to create and sell Ultra Jet. Now, Ultra Jet is just an enhanced version of Jet, and it requires sugar bombs to make. So using some speech, we can increase the amount of caps he will give us per box of sugar bombs. so this can be a good place to make some quick money. It's not a whole lot, but if you had a lot of sugar bombs, yeah, it would add up somewhat. He will give you 15 to 30 caps per box, and once you give him 8 boxes of sugar bombs, he will give you Ultra Jet, so a pretty good deal for you. Now, in the back of Murphy's room, there is a sewage tunnel which we can enter. And this will take us to the Mercedes Service Tunnel. However, this is a part of the quest Blood Ties, or the Mercedes Service Tunnel, so we will worry about that in a future video. However, there are some Mirelurks down here, so I went ahead and killed them for the XP using my 44 Magnum. It is pretty easy if you shoot them in the face, like so. But for now, we will ignore the rest of this area. Just be aware, this is one possible entrance into the Mercedes Service Tunnels. Now, heading back to Northwest Seneca Station, we can go inside of the bathroom here, and there will be some mole rats. If you mess up the bit at the Tepid Sewers during Moida Brown's quest, the Wasteland Survival Guide, this can be a good place to find some additional mole rats because they always spawn in here. As you can see there, I kind of messed up in Tepid Sewers doing the optional objective, so I came here in order to kill some more mole rats and complete the optional objective. But besides that, that's pretty much it for inside the station itself. However, there is a lot going on in the surrounding area. If we head to the east-southeast, there will be, well, a Yaoguai, so take out that Yaoguai. But more importantly, there's going to be a shack on top of this kind of peninsula. If you go up to the shack, you will actually find a friendly scavenger, and she will offer to sell you stuff. There's also some locked ammo crates, but obviously it would be considered stealing to take it from her. But just so you know, if you're a bad person, you can take it. And then just south of Northwest Seneca Station, that's a weird sentence, but just south we can find some docks and some boats and some Mirelurks, so make sure you take them out if they come attacking you. But I couldn't really find anything at the docks themselves, but just kind of a cool little unmarked location. There is also a camper here and a rowboat, but yeah, there's really nothing as far as loot. And there's also a skeleton laying on a picnic table. Who knows what happened to that poor soul? And finally, on the highway above Northwest Seneca Station, we can find an Enclave outpost. Now, interestingly enough, one of the Enclave soldiers is friendly towards you for whatever reason. But as soon as the other 2 Enclave soldiers notice you, they will attack. If you can somehow sneakily kill all of the Enclave soldiers, then the other Enclave soldier will remain friendly to you. But the second you engage in combat, well, it's game over. Also, if you didn't see there, the Enclave soldier with the missile launcher launched a missile straight into the back of his comrade. Wow, what an idiot. But besides that, we have the normal Enclave loot up here, so just go ahead and take what you can find, like a stealth boy. Pretty darn good. Alright everyone, and I think that covers the Northwest Seneca Station. A pretty cool, nifty little area with a lot more going on than initially meets the eye. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. If you have any ideas or recommendations for future videos, future ideas, please let me know in the comments section below. And as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out a pretty small location, but there's actually a lot going on here. I thought it was pretty cool for a location that would easily be overlooked by most players. And this location is Moonbeam Outdoor Cinema. So let's waste no more time because this location is pretty small, and let's dive on into it. And then here on the bottom right of the map, you can see Moonbeam Outdoor Cinema just south of Hamilton's Hideaway and just east of Arefu. Now, the main enemy here is going to be super mutants, and there was one super mutant just kind of waiting for me in the center of the camp, but he was pretty easy to deal with, so yeah, just took him out really easily. Of course, this is a drive-in movie theater, so there's going to be a lot of parked cars here in front of the screen, and you want to loot those super mutants. Now, off in the distance, just to the east, you're going to find this trailer. You're going to want to go to this trailer and sneak up on it, because you're going to find a super mutant master, or perhaps an overlord in here with a minigun, so you don't want him to get a jump on you, you want to get a jump on him. Also, there's a first aid kit in here with random healing supplies, so not half bad. As we make our way back towards the drive-in, we can find all of these nice picnic tables, and you get some killer views of the Potomac River, which is really cool. There's some toys and stuff on this table, but nothing really of interest. Now, as we go over to the next set of tables, we can find the most notable item here, and that is a copy of Pugilism Illustrated. So so make sure you pick up that bad boy if you stop by here. But besides some really nice views of the Potomac, well, there isn't a whole lot here. Unfortunately, we cannot watch a movie. Now, if we head just towards the northwest or west, there is a staircase that'll take us down towards the river, but it is now dried up, which is quite unfortunate. There are some ammunition boxes down here that we can loot, so make sure you take a peek and see what you can find inside of them. The one with the hardest lock is an average lock, so not too difficult, and it's free ammunition, so you might as well take it. There's also a trash can here, but there is just some bottle caps inside of it, nothing really great. And at the end of the dock here, we can find this skeleton clutching a teddy bear with beer and other food, and right below me there was a chaotic scene unfolding as this Mirelurk went to go attack a Yaoguai, and a mole rat ran up behind me to attack me. So yeah, we got rid of that mole rat. I then decided to attack the Yaoguai and the Mirelurk, and yeah, it was just kind of chaotic, just kind of a typical crazy Fallout 3 situation, and I absolutely loved it. I do want to apologize. While filming this video, for some reason the capture card was lagging. I'm pretty sure I actually know why it was doing this, so hopefully it won't be a problem moving forward, but yeah, just so you know, I am aware that happened. But I feel really bad for this skeleton clutching the teddy bear. I just thought perhaps this person died and just saw the world end, and this teddy bear was very important to him. So when the teddy bear fell, I decided to go pick it up because I just kind of felt bad. It's kind of weird that a game can make me feel emotional over a teddy bear, but hey, anyways, I plan to put that teddy bear in my home in Megaton and to cherish it until the day I die. Alright everyone, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Do you have any memories of this location? Do you remember it at all? Anything at all? Most likely not, but if you do, I would be pleased to hear about it in the comments section below. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any ideas or recommendations for future videos, future locations, please post them in the comment section below. And as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out Fordham Flash Memorial Field, which is just a baseball field that is located east of Arefu and just west of where we were last time, Moonbeam Outdoor Cinema. Just southwest actually, as you can see here on the Pip-Boy. Now I'll be honest, this location is pretty small. There isn't a whole lot going on here, but there is a pretty cool little encounter we can have here for the first time that we visit. Make sure you bring a stealth boy or have high sneak in order to see it. So let's waste no more time and let's dive into Fordham Flash Memorial Field. So this area is inhabited by raiders, and the first time you come here, if you have high sneak or you are using a stealth boy like I am, you will see that the raiders appear to be playing some type of baseball at least. One of the raiders is running around the bases with a baseball bat in hand, and another one is just kind of walking back and forth with a baseball bat. Don't really know what was going on here, some kind of form of torture or punishment. Who knows, but as I got too close, the raiders did notice me, and so I took care of them pretty easily. Both of them have baseball bats, so fitting that they're at a baseball field. Now, the actual field, we can see a bunch of mutilated bodies here at the cage where home plate is, and there's also a bed with another mutilated body. There's some baseball bats, which we can, of course, take, and then we can see that all of the bases are still here, or the Raiders brought them here. We have the pitcher's mound, first base, second base, and third base. So, pretty cool, and throughout the area, we can find baseballs scattered around. Again, probably not from the pre-war era. Perhaps they are, or perhaps the Raiders are just playing baseball. Now, if we head to the southwest towards Kaelyn's bed and breakfast, we will find a kind of collapsed bridge and a lot of raiders in this area. So maybe the raiders were using the baseball field for fun. We can also find a baseball underneath the bridge, so perhaps somebody hit a home run all the way from the baseball field to the bridge. Who knows, but just thought I'd point it out because I thought it was kind of fun. Now, if we head to the northwest this time, we can find some docks. These are across from the docks that we talked about in the Northwest Seneca Station video. And then there is an empty trunk, and there's a first aid box that is an easy lock. It had some pretty useful medical supplies in it, for me at least, so you might want to take a look, see what you can get. Then up here on this little post, we can find a bottle of Nuka-Cola Quantum balancing on top of 2 tin cans. Don't know why it's there, who put it there, probably for target practice. But yeah, I couldn't actually move the cans with the laser rifle. I thought that was kind of weird. But there you guys have it, Fordham Flash Memorial Field. Now, I have no clue who Fordham Flash is. I did some research, trying to figure it out, but I couldn't find anything. If I had to assume, perhaps he was just a student that tragically died. Perhaps he was a famous baseball player that tragically died. Who knows? Who knows why it's called that? If you have any theories, please post them in the comments section below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any ideas or recommendations for future videos, future locations, please post them in the comments section below. And as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Today we're going to be checking out Kaelyn's Bed and Breakfast. This is just a small, old bed and breakfast, kind of like hotel, that is located, well, in the middle of the Capital Wasteland, directly north of Vault 106, really close by, actually. Now, this bed and breakfast would have offered a great view of the Potomac River during the pre-war era, of course. Today, it still offers a great view of the Potomac River, but in a wasteland that is very dangerous and a Potomac River that is filled with mirelurks. But that is the least of your worries when you're at this nice bed and breakfast, because now it is occupied by raiders. But besides that, there really isn't a whole lot going on here, so let's waste no more time and let's jump into it. And as I said, Kaelyn's Bed and Breakfast is located just north of Vault 106, just southwest of Fordham Flash Memorial Field, where we visited in the last episode. And if you approach from Fordham Flash Memorial Field from the northeast, then you will encounter this bridge that has a ton of raiders on it. These raiders are also in the line of sight of the raiders at Kaelyn's Bed and Breakfast, so often when you fight the raiders at the bridge, the raiders at the bed and breakfast will also get involved. Now, underneath the bridge, we can find a baseball from the nearby Fordham Flash Memorial Field, which is a baseball field, so it makes sense somebody hit a home run there. And then as we approach the bed and breakfast, there will be a couple raiders up top trying to kill me. The mailbox is rigged with a proximity mine, and there's a tripwire as you enter that delivers this Brahmin into your face, which dealt a ton of damage to me, so be careful of the traps when you enter, unlike me, who almost died. Then I took out the other two raiders, pretty easily, I might add. Raiders are becoming much easier as I progress in levels in Fallout 3. And then we could peacefully loot through the bed and breakfast, but honestly, there really is not much in here. We can find some junk food, we can find some kind of just junks that, you know, could be used for crafting or something. On the second floor, we can find that it's in complete disrepair, just held together now by sheets of metal and a kind of makeshift ramp. The staircase is obviously gone. We can find somebody who was obviously tortured by the raiders, poor soul, and we get some beautiful views of the Potomac. Now, while I was shooting the scenic shot, I was attacked by Enclave, who I believe landed kind of near the baseball field, and they probably saw the fighting with the raiders and made their way over. So I decided to burn them to death using my flamer pretty easy, and then I could loot them for, well, whatever good loot they had on their bodies. And also, I just wanted to add that just north of Kaelyn's Bed and Breakfast is a small radioactive pond. Don't know how or why it got here, but hey, it's here. It doesn't really serve any purpose to the game. There's really no loot here, but just thought I'd point it out. And then from the bed and breakfast, we can see the Potomac River off in the distance. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. Kaelyn's Bed and Breakfast is a pretty simple location with a pretty cool firefight. I really love the fencing in this kind of area where the skulls are on the fence. I just think it adds a lot to the atmosphere and is really cool. Alright guys, if you have any recommendations or ideas for future videos, future locations, please post them in the comments section below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, until next time. Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and today we're going to be taking a look at Arefu.
Arefu.
Now, I'm sure most players remember Arefu because it's a part of the quest Blood Ties, which is a pretty significant quest in the game, or at least it's very famous, and I do actually quite enjoy this quest. Now, Arefu is a small village in Romania, and it's best known for its proximity to the former castle of Vlad III, or who is also known as Dracula or Vlad the Impaler. So we can see the obvious reasons for the quest, Blood Ties being associated here. So if my Romanian pronunciation is okay, the proper pronunciation would be Arefu. However, some of the characters in Fallout 3 simply say Arefu. Some of them say Arefu, some of them say Arefu, kind of a mixed bag depending on the character, as you just saw with Ian.
Arefu.
Now, within the world of Fallout 3, Arefu actually doesn't get its name from, well, the town in Romania. Actually, it gets its name from this exit sign on the highway that is actually supposed to say careful. But obviously the C and the L have fallen off, so now it says Arefu. Kind of just a cool little thing, because obviously these people here probably have little knowledge about Arefu. They might know about vampires and Dracula and stuff, but I don't know how detailed their knowledge would have been, so this is why it's called Arefu, at least within the lore of the game. This is a very famous town in Fallout 3. It is located just north of Vault 106 and just south of the Northwest Seneca station in the area that we've been exploring around recently. So with that long introduction out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into Arefu. Arefu? Does it matter? Not really. Now, as you approach Arefu, please be careful, because sometimes you might have encounters with random enemies, like this Deathclaw who is attacking some Brotherhood outcast. And this Deathclaw absolutely wrecked their day, but thankfully the outcast dealt enough damage, so I was able to make quick work of the Deathclaw. Also, you might find some merchants here, like Crazy Wolfgang, since Arefu is on a trading path. But if you come here for the first time, you will notice that things are not normal. This town is kind of not in good shape. We have this abandoned shack at the very entrance where we can find several dead Brahmin. Not a good sign. Also, then I got attacked by a rad scorpion. Again, there can be lots of critters in this area. And then we can see the road sign that says careful, or what used to say careful, and now it says Arefu. Also, while I was trying to film the scenic shot, I was again attacked by just random shit. So much stuff is going on out here. It's actually pretty fun. A sentry bot started attacking me. The sentry bot started getting attacked by raiders. Just pure chaos. Anyways, I just thought I'd mention that, yeah, the entrance can be chaotic. Anyways, as you make your way up, you're going to find some crash buses and stuff like that, but to be perfectly honest, there really isn't anything of note as you approach. But eventually you're going to find this small town, and you'll be shot at. However, this explosion cannot kill you. It is a scripted event, so yeah. Anyways, this guy, Evan King, is kind of the sheriff of Arefu, and he's the one that shot at us but missed. But we can very quickly learn that Arefu is in a sorry state. They're in a defensive position, and their population has shrunken, well, massively. What used to be a town of 30 people, somehow, there's not enough houses for 30 people, but apparently 30 people used to live here, now only has a population of 7. So Evan King here tells us that he would like us to go check on all of the residents to make sure they are okay. A pretty easy task, and we'll just take him up on his offer because we are a good Samaritan. And in the first house here, we can find the colorful cast of Mr. and Mrs. Ewers, and they are something else. So the wife is, well, not so smart. She's asking for some kind of magazine, and, well, the husband, well, you can see for yourself.
Please, do come inside. Let me unlock.
What the hell are you doing in here? Get the fuck out! Oh, for the love of... Look, she's dumber than a bag of hammers, okay? If you want to talk to anyone, you need to talk to me. So what the fuck do you want?
Wow, Brayley, scored yourself a real winner there, didn't you? But hey, I guess if they're happy, who am I to complain? Anyways, these two are okay, despite, well, their kind of weird personalities. They are okay, but we do understand that Ken here is not happy with the situation in Arefu, and that he thinks Evan is not doing a suitable job. And I don't know why, but for some reason when I tried to talk to Brayley here, she was trying to flee, so maybe there was a critter or something underneath Arefu that was like attacking, because I had this caution sign. Anyways, the next residence is Karen's residence. Of course, she is going to complain about the situation in Arefu because, well, her name is Karen. But memes and jokes aside, she is concerned with the current situation, but this is just a woman who lives by herself. I don't know if she has some kind of tragic backstory, maybe she lost a friend, a husband, brother, family, who knows, but yeah, she doesn't really go into it, but she is concerned about the situation. Again, we can see people are not happy about the situation. And after that, we can move on to the West residence. Of course, Evan is okay. And as we enter the West residence, we find something very disturbing. We can click on the bodies and we find the bodies of the West have bite marks on the neck area that go to the bone. The lack of bloodstains on the sheets is strange, as any bite or wound of that depth should have caused massive bleeding. The bite marks on the neck appear to be from a human or humans with sharpened incisors or canines. Something is really weird going on here. Anyways, with that, the population of Arefu is now down to 4 because the West mom and dad are dead and their son, Ian, has, well, disappeared. So that is good. They used to have 30 people and now they have, well, 4 people. If we go to the far northern end of Arefu, we can find their toilet system, just some outhouses, and across from us we can find the other part of the highway where there is an Enclave outpost, and the Enclave will actually attack you from over there if you haven't already dealt with them. Now, apparently the citizens of Arefu collapsed the highway on purpose. How they did that is currently unknown, but maybe they just used a fuck ton of TNT. So after doing a welfare check on all of the citizens of Arefu, we will return to Evan, where we will report our results and the unfortunate news about the West. This is actually where we will first learn about Ian, the West son, and apparently Ian has been talking to the leader of the family. The family is a local gang that is causing all of this trouble for Arefu. So he tells us then that we should go find Ian because he's a good kid, and he's either been kidnapped or manipulated or something by the family. However, Evan doesn't know where the family is, so we have to start a search around this local area in order to locate their hideout. So let's start our epic adventure looking for Ian.
What?
So after completely failing on our first attempt, we can start looking at the local area. Now, I've already explored a lot of the places nearby, and you will know that the family is not located in any of them. However, there is a secret passage in the Northwest Seneca station. We've already done a video on this location, so if you're curious, please check it out. But anyways, going to the Northwest Seneca station and going inside, we can find Murphy. And Murphy is this ghoul here who produces Ultrajet. You can sell him sugar bombs in order to produce his Ultrajet if you want to do that. But if we ask Murphy about the family, he will say that they have a good relationship because he doesn't bother them and they don't bother him. But he tells us there might be a secret passage in the back here through this manhole. If you go down there, you're going to find a small cave with mirelurks. You'll come out the other side, inside of the hideout of the family. Pretty convenient, but there's a ton of traps, so be careful. Now, the actual entrance to the family's hideout is here at Meresti Train Yard. Now, Meresti Train Yard also has some connections to Austria. Who would have guessed? Meresti is the commune in I might say this wrong, Harghita County, Romania, which is a part of Transylvania. Obviously, a lot of connections to Dracula, vampires, all of that awesome stuff. So that's where it gets its name. Now, as we go inside, there's going to be a plethora of traps, including this crying baby, which I couldn't disarm. Also, Meresti has 2 entrances, an east entrance and a west entrance. Doesn't matter which entrance you go inside of. Eventually, as you make your way through, you're going to find this man, Robert. And this is kind of your first encounter with the family. However, he's pretty easy to convince that you're an okay person. So just do whatever you gotta do to convince him that you're okay, and he will let you pass. Now, in Fallout, I always play with the radio off to avoid copyright issues. But for some reason in Fallout 3, sometimes the radios are still on, so I turn them off. But here, Robert got very angry at me for turning off his radio.
Why are you the way that you are?
Anyways, I just thought this was really funny. I've never seen that happen in Fallout, but here you can see my settings. My radio is indeed turned all the way down, and also my ambient music is turned all the way down. So I'm not sure why these radios continue to play. If anybody has an answer in the comments, please let me know. But yeah, Robert here gets very angry if you mess with his radio. So don't change the channel, don't turn off Robert's radio, or else he will ruin the entire quest of Blood Ties. I reloaded a save so we can continue on with the video. Now, inside Moresti Station, we can find the family, and the family is also a colorful cast of characters, just kind of like at Arefu. One of the characters, and a very important one for us, is Carl. He kind of acts as the merchant for the family. You can trade with him and buy goods, which is actually very useful. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But for now, he's actually very useful because we can convince him through a strength test to give us the key to the room where Ian is. Ian is being held in isolation, and he will give us the password for the terminal in order to open up that room, which is just so helpful. So thank you very much, Mr. Carl. And as I was saying, Carl is also a merchant, so you can trade with him. He sells a significant amount of scrap metal, which can be useful if you're going to give it to Walter and Megaton or Winthrop within the underworld. So just a good note, this is a great way to get some scrap metal. We can also find Holly, who is the wife of Vance, and Vance is the leader of the family. Here we have Brianna, who kind of acts as an escort who services the men of the family. She seems to like her job. However, she mentions that she does not service married men. So I guess they do have some ethics, at least, going on here, which is kind of interesting. Maybe it's kind of like a commune or something. And we can also find some new recruits to the family, including Justin here, and sitting behind him is Alan. And one thing you'll quickly realize is everybody here seems very happy. They seem happy with their leader Vance. They seem like to think that he's a great person with a lot of good leadership skills. So this does not actually seem like a normal gang, at least on the surface, but this is a very, very weird gang indeed. And then, if we talk to Vance, the leader of the family, we can find out why this gang is so unique. Now, apparently, they have developed a mutation craving human flesh, but they've learned they can consume human blood as a substitute to satisfy this hunger and avoid true cannibalism. And this group does see cannibalism as barbaric and, well, not humane. However, apparently, killing and drinking somebody's blood is perfectly fine. Anyways, that is why they have adopted this quote-unquote vampire lifestyle. Of course, they're not real vampires. They can't turn into a bat. They can go outside during the day. They can look in mirrors, all of that good stuff. But they do need to drink blood, at least according to Vance and this alleged mutation. Anyways, after this with Vance, we can go talk to Ian. And Ian is located in the back of the station, and as I said before, he's being kept in isolation because he is the newest member to the family and he's feeling a lot of conflict about his recent decision. Well, we'll find out a lot more about that decision here in a few seconds. But here is Mr. Ian. He is a lot older than I initially expected him to be. I don't know, I just imagined a child when I was, searching for the son of the West family, but it's not a child. It is actually like a young adult. And if you question Ian here, he will reveal he is the one who killed his own parents and drank their blood. According to Ian, he is also kind of suffering from this mutation and that he feels deeply conflicted about what to do next. But yeah, he did murder his parents, and you could easily see the entire family as murderers. They're killing people for their blood. I mean, they're literally acting like vampires, but maybe they have a reason to do so if they really do have this kind of weird mutation. Up to you who to believe, but basically I convince Ian that he should go back to Arefu and support his community and take responsibility for his actions. And this can be done with a speech check, and there's another way we can do that, which we will mention later in the video. So after I convince Ian to go back to Arefu, I decide to take the peaceful route here with Vance, and I actually convince him to just stop bothering Arefu. Now, there are a couple of approaches you could choose to deal with this situation. Of course, you could just kill the family, you could side with the family, and there's actually a couple of peace deals you can make between the family and Arefu. However, I have trouble actually trusting the family to avoid killing the people of Arefu and drinking their blood, just because of their cravings that they have and encourage one person to kill his parents. I think that is very dangerous, and maybe I should not encourage Ian to go back to Arefu, but anyways, maybe my decision is absolutely bad. But basically, I convinced them to stop bothering Arefu for the foreseeable future, if Arefu doesn't bother them, kind of like the relationship they have with Murphy. Seems reasonable enough to me. Also worth mentioning, if you choose the diplomatic route, Vance will give you schematics for the shish kebab, a pretty nice weapon. After that, we can head back to Arefu and talk to Evan. Evan will be over the moon because of our actions. We ended the conflict with the family. We helped Ian return home, even though maybe he should face trial or some kind of punishment. I don't know. This seems like what I would do. But anyways, Evan is very happy, and we can see that the small community of Arefu is in much better shape. The citizens are outside, roaming around, and for our help, these citizens will offer us various things for, helping them. But these are pretty small things, but, worth mentioning. And with the quest out of the way, let's start talking about some of the good loot. Now, you might have to be a bad person and pick the door to Evan's house. Fortunately, you don't actually lose karma for this action, strangely enough. But inside Evan's house, we can find the repair bobblehead, a great find, which will increase your repair by 10. Now, if we come to the entrance of Arefu, we can find the Brahmin are now alive, thanks to us. Did we bring him back to life? Not sure. But anyways, this abandoned shack is still boarded up. However, we want to get inside, so we have to change time. By going back in time and changing our actions, we can negotiate a different peace deal between the family and Arefu. Basically, the people of Arefu will supply blood packs for the family to drink. And in return, the family will protect Arefu from any wrongdoers. I think this is kind of a unsettling situation, but it is a situation that you can choose. It's also worth mentioning that Vance finds this option much preferable because it puts his group in a better position, so he will actually consider you almost a member of the family and will give you a special ability, which we will discuss later. And with that, we will take Vance's proposal to Evan, who takes it really well. I was actually quite surprised. He doesn't even need any convincing. I don't know how the people of Arefu would feel about this, like the Ewers or, Kaelyn, but hey, who cares? Because Evan likes it, even though the people of Arefu don't really like Evan at this point in time. Anyways, I think this part maybe could have been designed a little bit better. Maybe we have to convince the people as well. But after Evan agrees, we go back to Vance, and Vance is very happy that we achieved this peace treaty with Arefu. And with that, he will then send Alan to live in that abandoned shack where the Brahmin are, and that is kind of the protection for Arefu. Because of this, Vance will teach us some of the ways of the vampire, and now blood packs will restore 20 HP when we use them instead of the normal 1. So, hey, not too bad.
Then
And if we go back to Arefu, now the shack will be unblocked. We can go inside. It is called Alan's Shack. And on the first floor to our left, we can find a copy of Pugilism Illustrated. Kind of a shame we have to choose a certain route in order to get this skill book, but that is how you acquire it if you want it. Thankfully, Alan was sleeping upstairs, so we could simply steal it from him. Now, also along the Potomac River, we can find this dock here, and there's a first aid box, which we can pick, which had some really good healing items for me, and also we can find a bottle of Nuka-Cola Quantum balancing on top of this post. You could see Arefu off in the distance, so we're just east of Arefu at this point. Now, in the middle of the river, we can find this kind of boat that is somehow still floating, and inside of it we can find a medical kit that we can unlock, and had some good healing items inside of it. Also be aware that Mirelurks can spawn in this area. As you can see here, I had a Mirelurk and a Mirelurk Hunter. Now, if we go just underneath where that Nuka-Cola Quantum was, we can find a crashed car, along with a dead body, a skeleton, a silenced 10mm pistol, along with an ammunition box with 10mm ammo. This seems to be kind of a reference to a gang-style execution, so just a nice little find right underneath the river. Now, back inside of Meresti Station, if you jump on the train in the middle, there is a box. If you pick up the box, you can find a copy of Line Congressional Style. And perhaps one of the best hidden mini-nukes in the entire game, there is a mini-nuke on the top of this roof. It's very difficult to see, even with a sniper rifle, but you can kind of see it, as you can see there. And using our sniper rifle, we will then shoot the mini-nuke off the roof. It might take a few shots in order to get it, but if you try hard enough, eventually you can get it. It took me about 3 shots in order to force it off the roof, and then I obviously had to go find it because it just kind of flew off into the distance. So I went around, couldn't find it, but finally I was able to get it. It was right here. And also worth mentioning, in Vance's room, we can find a very interesting weapon. Now, there are some interesting things in here besides that, but inside of the actual bedroom, we can find this hard-locked sword cabinet, even though it looks like a normal wardrobe. And inside we can find Vampire's Edge, a unique weapon within the game. And as I mentioned earlier back at Arefu, the characters can offer you various things for helping them, such as Ken here, who has a very low repair skill. I don't know how useful that is. And then Brayley over here will just give you random junk, like this tin can. And then frickin' Karen over here will just give you some of the nearby locations, all of which I've already discovered because, hey, I'm an otter and I'm also a cartographer. But hey, she doesn't know that. And one last thing I wanted to mention is Ian's sister. Yes, Ian has a sister, and he might mention her that she is missing or that he doesn't know where she is. She's actually located in Megaton at Moriarty's saloon, and I'm sure this is how most players actually start Blood Ties, because if you talk to her, she will ask you to deliver something to Arefu. She'll mention her brother and stuff inside of this letter. And this letter can be very powerful and helpful in convincing Ian to return back to Arefu and to atone for his sins. But yes, Lucy West is still alive, but now she lives in Megaton. It's as simple as that. And that is yet another way you can start this quest, of course. Just one of the brilliant things about Fallout, there are so many paths to choose. And if you go back to Vance with that letter, you can actually use the letter to encourage him or convince him to let you speak to Ian. And then, like I said, we can use the letter to convince Ian to return back to Arefu. He realizes that his sister loves him and that she really misses him. So, kind of wholesome, kind of nice, but yeah, I don't know if I actually trust Ian or anyone within the family. But there you guys have it. Arefu and, well, Arefu and Meresti Station. Now, these are some of my favorite locations actually in Fallout 3, and Blood Ties is one of my favorite side quests in the entire game. What is your guys' opinion of Blood Ties, Arefu, and the family? Do you support the family? Do you try to make a peaceful ending? Or are you more like me, where you don't trust the family to uphold their word? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Unexplored Capital Wasteland. If you guys have any recommendations or ideas for future locations, future videos, please post them in the comment section below. And if you're still watching this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps out the channel a ton. I know many of you really like my Fallout 3 videos, and I really like making them. Alright guys, again, thank you so much for watching, and as always, until next time.